What's up, guys? Doug Polk here. Welcome back for another episode of the Doug Polk Podcast. Today, we are joined by a longtime friend of the pod, friend of my content, good friend of mine, Joe Ingram, joins the podcast. We're going to be talking about what he has been up to over the last, 8, 9, 10 months, been a little bit, maybe even a year. Not sure. He was off the grid for a bit, but now he's back. Plenty to talk about. Should be a good one. But before we do that, quickly, I want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by CoinFLEX.us. CoinFLEX.us is finally launched, and now Americans have the opportunity to trade crypto with zero fees. This is the first legal regulated crypto exchange to offer zero trading fees to all users, regardless of volume. Just how do I earn it? Well, it's easy to do. You can sign up in minutes and start trading Bitcoin, Ethereum, and many more currencies with zero trading fees. It's just that simple. Head on over now to CoinFLEX.us to learn more. Legal disclaimer, cryptocurrencies are risky. That's the disclaimer. And finally, here before we get going on the podcast, the Lodge Championship Series is underway. We have a series of events, great ones coming up for you. We have an $800 tournament today, likely going to overlay $750K guarantee. That's good for you. If you're in the area, head on down to the Lodge. $2 million main event guaranteed begins in just a couple of days here. If you guys want to learn more, you can head over to Lodge Poker Club and learn more. Okay, guys. Normally we jump in, I enter the guest here, but I want to clarify a couple of things real quick about a conversation that came up on Twitter yesterday where I tweeted about a recent cover of a Sports Illustrated magazine, and I'm not trying to stir the pot any more than I have already stirred it, but I do want to clarify a few things about what I tweeted as well as make one correction that I think was a mistake. But for starters, I just want to open with, I have absolutely no ill will towards fat people at all. I've seen some comments on things like that. Absolutely not the case. Some of my best friends are overweight, and frankly, I'm overweight, and most of my life have been solidly overweight. It's been a bit of a personal struggle for me. I've worked very hard to try and maintain my weight and live a healthier lifestyle. I understand that it's difficult. So I do have a lot of compassion for people that are in that situation. But I also have to say that obesity is a serious problem here in America. If you look at what kills Americans, it is the number one killer of Americans is heart disease. A leading cause of that is obesity. And also when we look at COVID, the second most important factor after age is also weight. It's also obesity. So I do understand that a lot of people were upset about this thread. I feel like it hit a nerve, but I also stand by the fact that it's not healthy to be obese or to be overweight, and that you should be striving to try and lose weight if you are in that area. Couple notes I want to say of mistakes that I made with the tweet, though. I do recognize that there are some things that you can't help when it comes to weight. There are certain health conditions. Obviously, people that have some sort of health condition that prevents them. I didn't mean to attack those people. And then also, of course, pregnancy. When people are pregnant, you're going to be gaining weight as well. That's completely understandable. I didn't want to lump those in with all the other things that were a part of that conversation. There's one thing I specifically want to apologize for in my tweet. I ended with saying that I think something like big is not beautiful. I think that was a mistake. Really, I'm just putting my own opinion in there at that point, and that's really kind of crossing the line into an insult. So I do apologize for saying that. However, I do stand by the premise of my tweets. I think that normalizing obesity in America is a mistake, and at least for people that I care about, I really try to help live a better life, live a healthier life, and not make the mistake of hurting your lifespan with some of these health problems. So one last thing I want to say here too is that my viewpoints do not reflect the views of any of the businesses I'm involved in. So if you want to direct any anger, please direct it at me, because a lot of the people in my businesses that you are messaging upset, well, they don't even know what you're talking about and didn't say anything. So with all of that, again, I do apologize for the beautiful comment. I feel like that was too far, but I still stand by my statement that obesity is a real problem in this country that we should be trying to fix moving forward. All right, Joey, let's bring in today's guest. Joe Ingram joins the pod. Joey, welcome. You are muted, but it's great to have you.
I'm muted. What's happening, brother? How's it going?
There we go.
Thank you for that great intro. It was awesome. I'm glad that you got fired up the night before we did our great podcast together, and you decided to go on the Twitter rampage, and you decided to get the people fired up there. Doug, nice to see you again, my friend. It's been a few weeks here since I made my first return YouTube podcast and then did that hustler game. And yeah, man, it's great to be back on. It's great to be on your new show, man. How's it going with you, Doug? I know you're probably feeling a little bit interesting today after when you get a lot of energy like that on Twitter, you get a lot of feedback, positive, negative. I know that it can impact you because I've gone through that plenty of times over my own career, positive and negative. So it's great to see you today, man. I hope you're doing well.
It's good to see you. I do want to keep this focus more on you because I've had plenty of time talking publicly lately, and you have not. So I want to keep this as Joey focused as possible. But yeah, I obviously I weighed in yesterday on Twitter, and there was a bit of a backlash, and I knew there would be some of that, so that's fine. I just want to make sure that I say the things that I truly believe, and recognize that when I maybe go a step too far, which happens every now and then, that I can also admit that too. But let's get this back on you. Enough about me. We've had plenty of Doug subjects lately, so let's just kick it off with, where have you been?
Yeah, man. I mean, kind of going back, I think last time people saw me, I was down in Mexico. I had a great sunburn. Shout out to the sun. I literally still have those tan lines on my legs from that sunburn that I got that one day that we were doing commentary together. And basically, I just remember being in Mexico. I was on the beach. I was blacked out most days. The margaritas were flowing. It was a lot of line down in Mexico. Shout out to the great people of Cabo. And I just remember sitting there on the beach, and I was like, man, what the fuck? Like, why? I guess, like, why do I keep doing this? Like, why am I doing this for? I hadn't really been happy with poker for a long time. Playing poker is just like, I guess the topics I've covered in the past recent years have made me feel more negative about what's happening in the poker world, and maybe seeing things through a very negative bias. And instead of finding the great things and finding the opportunities and being positive and passionate and loving and enjoying and like I've always been in the poker world, I just haven't really felt that way for a while, for whatever reason, right? Whether it's personal life, whether it's the mixture of personal, private, career, whatever. So after I did the Phil Ivey podcast, the Taunt podcast, I was just kind of sitting in Mexico, and I was like, you know what, man? I was like, fuck this. I'm just taking a long break. So I started taking a long break. I just realized, like, having no Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, make no content was one of the greatest things I felt. It felt so great for so long. And yeah, man, I just really need to reset my health, get my life on track, get the foundation of my life on track, get over this heartbreak I was going through at my last breakup. And just kind of see what happens, see where my mind went to, and see when I wanted to come back to poker. And that took a long time. So, but kind of when during that Bryn Kenny stuff and the Bryn Kenny scandal happened, I'd kind of already been thinking about coming back to poker, and I was like, well, I guess this seems like a good time, right? Everyone's tweeting at me and stuff like that. So that was a big reason why I decided to make another tweet, but I kind of regret it in retrospect, but here we are. And yeah, but the basics is I was just studying, man, reading a lot of books, learn a lot about what the world has to offer, learn a lot about cryptocurrency and DeFi and the geopolitical world and the coronavirus stuff. I'm an investigative journalist, right? So of course I had to go down a rabbit hole, one of the most important topics, debatably, of our recent time in America, and in the world. So I definitely went down the beautiful coronavirus rabbit hole, because there's obviously a lot of stories on both sides for what the hell might be happening there. And there's, what is reality? Like, who decides reality? What is misinformation? All these kind of topics I explored, thought about, and yeah, man, got my life a little bit more healthy, a lot of water, a lot of sunlight, more taking control of my own thoughts versus letting other people control those thoughts. So kind of just like a brief way to describe it. And then, I'm debating how deep I want to go into that, maybe explaining it more and answering questions people have and stuff like that. But I would say that's a short way to kind of explain it. We can go from there.
A lot of topics to dive into there. You talk about leaving poker versus posting on social media. I understand that when you're on social media, oftentimes you're in that poker bubble, but I think being in poker versus being on social media are kind of two different things. Like, you could be doing content somewhat actively on YouTube and really not be engaging in the social media side of things, or you could be engaging in the social media side of things without being in poker at all. So I guess I would kind of differentiate those. When you decided to come back here, you said you regretted your tweet that you made when you decided to come back, and we've all had tweets we might come to regret on the old Twitter streets. But why come back to social media first? Do you see yourself doing more poker content? Do you see yourself being more involved in social media? I guess, like, maybe kind of give me your take on each side of that.
Yeah, I mean, I just fucking love Twitter. It's so fucking fun. I mean, this is like what I realize is like these whole games and metaverses are sort of in their own world. And when we're in the bubble of poker, we're like, we can't really see anything outside of it. But when you take a step back from poker for a few months and look inside, it's just fucking madness and like some sort of crazed mental hospital that I just sort of see taking place on Twitter. So I think I just really like Twitter. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to communicate with a lot of people that you know at scale versus something like YouTube or text message or Instagram, where Instagram's good for keeping up with your friends on their stories and replying to them and having fast conversation. But I feel like on Twitter, you get to have a connection with your fans and the people that you know and potentially people or companies that you might work with. And then once you're in the crypto world or in investing world, there's such good information, such good alpha on there from certain people that it just makes sense to, it's kind of like, I see it as like, if I want to do investing and if I want to do crypto, I have to be on Telegram, Discord, and Twitter. Even though I don't want to be on Twitter, I don't want to be on Telegram, I don't want to be on Discord, that I mean, maybe you could build a strategy and you could probably build an approach that's going to allow you to have success. But to me, I just, I sort of said, okay, well, let me try it out. Let me get back on there. I got back on there for crypto. I've been seeing some poker stuff. So, but yeah, kind of what you're describing is that you don't need to be on there on Twitter, Instagram to play poker, to make poker content, which I would agree with. I don't really know what my plan for YouTube is going to be here moving forward. I kind of want to just make a new channel and do a bunch of different things I have in mind, but I don't, I'm not sure how deep down the content rabbit hole I want to get. So these first few weeks have kind of been me feeling it out, reevaluating the scene, talking with all the poker companies. We did the Hustler game. There's some other events that we're planning right now. And I'm just kind of seeing, who wants to work together, who would make a good partner, who are the people that I actually like. Because, in poker, there's a lot of people who, you just don't want to work with or you don't want to collaborate on. So I'm kind of just surveying the scene right now, talking with all the operators, talking with the poker rooms online, live, the potential sponsors as well. And then the players on the content side, the players on the professional side, the players on the non-professional side. And sort of just figuring out what type of events I want to be a part of, who I want to work together with, what kind of content that means, and then how might that fit into what I'm doing with crypto and with investing and working with the companies that I'm working with in that world. So I'm sort of just trying to figure out, what the fuck do I want my life to be? And then we got the World Series poker coming up too. So I'm super excited about that. And yeah, I'm super excited about that. I'm just curious to see what that looks like. So that's sort of like the way I'm thinking about content route. And basically, if I'm kind of early in my crypto understanding that career, we know that it takes years to get knowledgeable, to get good, to understand what you're talking about and to be able to communicate that to the audience. So I don't really want to work that part into my content because I know a lot of people they talk a lot of shit, and then I don't really want them to follow any of my investment. I'm still learning about this stuff too. So it's more about, that's sort of how I'm trying to figure out now is how do you put those pieces back into the puzzle of what your public figure life is going to be, and then balancing that with the private figure life, which I've been enjoying these past 10 months.
You've brought up crypto several times here. Can you let us in a little bit on what kinds of stuff you've been learning about, what you're into, things like that? And obviously, no pressure here on saying certain projects or things, where you might be worried someone will lose money or invest. So just kind of give us a breakdown of the types of things you've been learning about. And when you say you've been getting into crypto, sort of what that entails.
Yeah, I think getting into crypto, it seems like a lot of these people talk about you got to put your 1,000 hours in to really, really learn what you're talking about. So I just started listening to podcasts on repeat over the past year. I know this guy, Michael Saylor, kind of controversial, but he's got this great podcast series with Robert Breedlove where they talk about the history of money and energy, and they trace it back to the 1600s, 1700s. And I found this one of the most fascinating series that I've ever listened to in my life, just kind of explaining what different ways to think about energy and how energy is money. And that sort of started blowing my mind. And then I started learning about the decentralized finance and these interest rates and why is the savings account interest rate so low, and why are these crypto sites able to offer so much, and then how does that work, and then the history of the central banking system in America. So my thesis when I started out was that if I want to be a really great investor, I need to be able to predict the future and see where the future trends are going to be. So that was kind of like what I was looking for. I was saying, okay, what does that mean? Like who knows the trends, and who sets the trends, who sets policy, where does policy come from? Are there certain organizations that dictate where things are going to go? And then as an investor, how can you potentially maximize your returns on that if you're investing capital or if you're investing resources? So I think the past maybe year has just been me really reading a lot, really studying a lot, taking in a lot. And one area that I really liked was the play to earn realm, because I feel like the way that some of these play to earn games are setting up their NFTs is that they're able to add a lot of utility to their NFT. And it's something different than just like a profile photo, which most people think about for when they think about NFTs. Whereas with the play to earn and how some of these ecosystems are developing themselves, they offer real utility to the customer, and then it's on them to actually deliver it. So I don't know what it's going to look like. So that was one part I really got interested in last year, was NFTs and play to earn tokens specifically. So I started investing in different play to earn tokens, and I realized that if I wanted to be, or one of the things I thought was that if I wanted to be a really good investor and if I wanted to work with different projects in the future, that I wanted to get more inside the company experience. So some of my friends started a crypto company and play to earn games. So right now I'm working with these guys, and we're in the game development part right now. So we got a pretty big team. We raised over $4 million from I think the lead investor was Polygon, and yeah, so it's got some potential. It's one of these bets where it could go very, very well. And if the company does well, if the game does well, then I get a lot of real great experience, and I'll learn a lot about how asset prices potentially move on the NFT side, on the token side, from a more corporate company side. And also, I've always wanted to work with other people, and I basically worked by myself for most of my career, outside of some working with you, some working with a few people who did some graphics for me. But I basically been by myself since, I started this out for the most part. So I just wanted to try working with other people and see what that's like. And it's so different than doing your own content and working with companies and doing your own partnerships and basically be into every part of your business. Obviously, we've talked about this a lot. You've been much more into the corporate structure and having a real organization and delegating certain tasks and responsibilities and more tactical decisions off to people who know what the fuck's going on, versus you being in the trenches and deciding to do everything yourself, which obviously I took a different approach to that when I started doing this. So that's sort of where I'm at right now, is that I'm trying to learn more of the corporate side and learn more on the inside in terms of how a gaming company operates, how a play to earn company operates, how a NFT company operates. And then that'll put me in a position to where I can either start my own projects, or I can work with other projects as an advisor, or I could work on a contract level, or I could potentially work on an equity level. So I'm kind of just positioning myself now to have more experience and sort of get those time and hours in to be able to be really, really good at this in 3 years, 5 years, and for the next 50 to 100 years. So that's sort of how I'm thinking about it right now.
100-year timeline?
50, I don't know, 50-year timeline. I don't know.
Okay. No,
better than, yeah.
One of the big problems with play to earn models is that their tokens end up being very inflationary. And I think most play to earn games have struggled for their token to really maintain value. Do you guys, what's your project name?
Taunt Battleworld.
Taunt Battleworld. Do you guys have any? Sorry?
Go ahead.
Do you guys have some sort of approach towards the tokenomics that's going to prevent it from becoming extremely inflationary and losing basically most of its value over time as people play to earn it?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the big challenge. And that's why I specifically wanted to do this, is because when you invest in something like the OMI token with EV, when you invest in something like the Flow token with Top Shot, when you invest in something like the dog shit Town coin with fucking Townstar from Gala Games, no one seems to really have this ecosystem figured out in terms of how you can give out this yield for assets, or how you can pay out this money consistently and then be able to exchange it on the secondary marketplace. So there really is no blueprint or model. And luckily I guess unlucky or luckily for me, is that even if I wanted to have an input in that, what I'm learning is in the corporate world is not necessarily how it works, and that you bring in specialists who are the people who are in charge of this role, and then you worry about what your role is. So in that situation right now, I know that our tokenomic system is being developed, and that's really what makes or breaks this, is the game fun? Is the tokenomic system make sense and work? And is it able to sustain itself long term? So to be able to build up that seems like it comes with trial and error. and no one has the blueprint yet. So, I mean, that's really the big bet here, is that can the company figure it out? And then can they sustain that potentially long term? And then if they can't, well, what happens with future iterations of games? So I think that's where the play to earn space is right now, is that it's sort of waiting to pop off once people start to figure it out. And we really aren't at that point yet, which is why I like getting in this early, is because the upside to me is pretty high.
Well, on these types of projects, it's usually like high upside, but the frequency which you get there is pretty low. I think the most successful play to earn game is Axie Infinity. I'm not sure if there's one that's more familiar with that, but what type of game is it going to be?
Basically, I mean, Axie's like one of the ones that started a couple years ago and kind of was the first to really get some mainstream relevancy in the play to earn space. And now they've obviously had a big issue with their token, the SLP token. So, and even the Axie token in general, of course, kind of going with the market. But Taunt is a fighting game. So it's a auto battler game. It's kind of based off a game called Zed Run. So Zed Run is a horse racing game where you buy an NFT horses, and there's different rarity types, there's different breeds, and then you breed those together and you race those against other people, and then you win real Ethereum on that for that game. So this game is more of, you purchase like NFT fighters, the fighters fight against each other, and then it's kind of like heads up poker, where there's heads up tournaments. And for the early versions of the game, there isn't as much strategic adjustment or training or anything like that. But as the other versions are developed, more strategy becomes relevant, and there's rune system, and there's boost systems, and there's more wearable NFTs that you can get later on for self-expression. Like in Fortnite, when you buy character skins, when you buy the backpacks, when you buy the bling, when you buy the dances and emotes, you can't exchange those in a secondary marketplace. Whereas in this situation, everything can be exchanged. The characters, the wearables, the boost, the entrance musics, they can all be exchanged on a secondary marketplace. So the state right now, it's still very early, and there's really nothing set in stone in terms of 100% what it's going to be. So we'll see as time goes on what exactly it looks like.
If this is where you're spending your time and what you're learning about and what you're working on, why would you not want to be making content in that space? Because you mentioned earlier that you're considering getting back into content, you're considering making a new channel, you're considering all these kinds of things. Why wouldn't you want the content to be in your area that you're focusing on? Because then it's the most authentic content, and you can create something that most resonates with people. I think with poker, as the example here, one of the reasons why your podcast resonated so well with the community is because you'd been in poker so long, you knew all the stories, you knew all the people, you knew what things meant. You were able to give us sort of an inside take on that and on that world. Why would you not want to replicate that type of thing from poker over in crypto if that's where you are spending your time?
Yeah, I'm kind of deciding that right now. I mean, it makes the most sense, right? Like, just start doing the same crypto, start talking about NFTs, starts talking about the different stories in the crypto world, start learning about the different coins, start learning about blockchain, start learning about the projects, and then basically turning all that into some version of content. I mean, there's obviously a lot of crypto strategies people are using on YouTube and on TikTok and on Twitter right now. I don't know. I'm like, I don't think I want to do that. So I want to work more behind the scenes. So that's the reason why I know I could do that. I could basically run the same playbook that I've run in poker and do that for the next 3-4 years, and then have big channels and have a big brand in there and have some sort of media relationships and have a lot of relationships with the different players and companies. Basically what I've done now. And kind of that's where I'm at now, is that I'm very early to that. I'm starting that out. Obviously I'm much more of a noob than people who have been around this stuff for years. And I never really wanted to get into this stuff. Obviously you've tried to get me down this road for a long time. I've never really wanted to. I wanted to stay focused on poker, but now I am trying to explore exactly what that might look like. So, but I still love poker. I mean, poker, there's so much opportunity, and really, I mean, poker, there's so much opportunity right now. And there's finally companies coming into the space that want to do cool projects, that want to spend money. The private game scene's booming. The vlog scene's booming. I mean, poker's kind of booming right now to me, versus the bear market that we've been in, when no one was really making content but me and you on YouTube for so long. So when I see the poker landscape now, it looks a lot different to me than it did months ago. So I'm like I said, I'm just surveying all the options, and I don't think I want to go back into the fucking content creator for NFTs, and you know what I mean? Like, maybe I'll talk about some deeper stories, or kind of explore more of the ideas that I have that I feel like maybe stimulate people a little bit deeper than sort of like the surface level price discussion. Oh my God, like, look at how much this is worth. Look at how much Bored Ape is worth. I'd rather do like a deep dive into Luna and figure out what exactly went on here and talk to really smart people in the space about what their opinions are about it and try to figure out things from that angle versus taking a more like, bigger, wider topic ideas that people just are interested in, the sort of the headline kind of grabbing ideas.
Yeah, that makes some sense. Having done crypto content myself and been in that space over the last several years, what I can say is that it's a little bit difficult with timing in that space, because when things do well, viewership tends to be much higher than when things do poorly. But putting that to the side, there are a couple other problems. One of them really is the whole price thing. The most important thing for news and crypto is price. By the time you make videos, the price has changed. So you're
Mhm.
constantly on this, you're lagging behind cycle. Information just moves so fast in cryptocurrency that it's kind of hard to stay up with it if you're going to be doing recorded content unless you're doing live streams. And even then, it's not evergreen, right? It ends up sort of just not being worth something in 1, 2, 3 days. And then for me, I felt like in poker, I could have takes that were insightful for people and I could offer analysis that people couldn't have on their own, especially for an average viewer. And I also knew a lot of the people here, so I had sort of inside information on how everyone thinks, what people are like, all that kind of stuff. When I made crypto videos, it was just so surface level. This is the price of this today. This is an article that happened somewhere. This company did this thing. And I feel like rather than having actually good takes and really good information, I was sort of pigeonholed into just covering topics where I'm like reading an article and then trying to force jokes in. And I think my best content I made in crypto was when I was making fun of scammers, because that's something where at least I can use some creativity and I can essentially warn people to get people out of these scams. And by the way, for example, the UST thing, I warned people on my channel 2 months before it happened to not be involved in UST. I have a video warning the people, but that video wasn't very popular, and it's hard to make that information popular because it's surface level a lot of the time and ends up being boring. So the kinds of content I could only really make that did well was making fun of these JR Garage Kids type things, or BitConnect, or maybe a few videos making fun of BitBoy or whatever it is. But it's hard to actually enter that space with meaningful content that helps people when they're just they're essentially getting the information themselves already so quickly that it feels like you kind of can't contribute to it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, I think for the content that I would do or think about doing would just be I'd probably just use more of the platforms really to drive more traffic to certain YouTubes, and with TikTok and with using IG Reels and with using Twitter and using partnerships, then you'd have to use like a circular strategy like that and really hone that into if you want to see numbers. Like I personally never really cared about. I've never tried people watch my YouTube channel. Obviously, we've had a lot of discussion about that over the years in terms of that. I've never tried for views, never tried for subscribers. I've literally never even taken YouTube that serious. So, when I really think about what would I do if I took YouTube serious, I would literally do the opposite of everything I do on YouTube if my goal was to get people to watch my shit. So I think about the same thing in any genre of something that you do, is that if your goal is to get people to just view your stuff, then you probably take a different strategy and you sacrifice what you just described, which is that you sacrifice needing to contribute value and you sacrifice needing to have a unique take. And also, once you start making that content for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and you really get entrenched in it, then that's where the really unique takes come from. And the reason why we are able to have the takes that we potentially do in poker is that, are they unique? We don't know, but we're willing to share them. And we've also been around the space for so long, and we've seen so many different angles that we're able to have these perceptions of what's happening. And to us, it's very standard. But the only reason that we're here is because we were so entrenched in the poker world in 2006, 2007. So a lot of those viewpoints and those perspectives and that confidence to be able to even communicate that across and then have other people say like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, just all comes in time. And I just don't see a way that you can hack that. So if your goal, I mean, I think you just take a more, I'm taking a more learning stance on anything that I do. And if I make content about it, it's more of like, I'm learning with you, the audience, and we're learning together versus I'm this authority who you have to listen to and you have to believe.
Yeah, but it's difficult with that because if you're learning together, people will feel like you're sort of replaceable.
Yeah, I can see
Whereas
that. Yeah.
if you're someone that's actually offering insight, then it gives you sort of competitive advantage. One thing I will say is I feel like if you're going to go that route, why would you not just make content in your current channel? Don't get me wrong. I love a good new YouTube channel as much as the next guy, but it seems like if you're going to just occasionally dabble, don't you think people would, it's going to be hard to build a new channel. And don't you think that the people that do follow you, some of them are going to be interested in whatever you're up to? I mean, dude,
Mhm.
after you left, a lot of people were just like, where's Joey? Where's
Yeah.
Joey?
Yeah,
Joey.
man.
And
I
I would
think
just see those comments, and it would be like 3 months. I'd be tweeting about something crypto related, like, no, where's Joey? I'm like, guys, this has nothing to do with Joey. Or,
yeah, I mean, I love the public figure life. You know what I mean? I had a great time, man. I really like I've been doing this stuff for a long time. I started doing content in 2014, and I basically did it every week since now it's 2022. So I think like it's great. I mean, it's really fun life. You know, when you're making content, you're in the mix all the time. It's a lot of energy. Everyone's showing you love. Some people are telling you that they want you to fucking die. A lot of people are telling you all the bad things they don't like about you. So, you know, obviously it makes sense, right? You built up these channels. I have a lot of followers. I can distribute a message. I can sell products and services. I can represent other brands who want to sell products and services. Like it makes a lot of sense to just keep doing this shit, to find a sponsor, to have a consistent sort of stream set up with that person, to release your own products and services, to do affiliate for other products and services in your industry. Like it makes a lot of sense to do that. But I think I would just rather build out in other ways, in other direction, and focus on more, I guess, like executive kind of roles, or more like investor value add sort of ideas, or even working with I really want to work in the political world. So the geopolitical world specifically, and the private intelligence world. So, you know, I don't know when that opportunity is going to come, or who exactly I'm going to work with, or what the context is going to look like, but I'm kind of like, you know, aligning with that direction in my life. And then when I think about getting back deeper in content, it sounds great, and I'm sure I'd create some fucking bangers. And I feel like I know exactly what the YouTube formula is to succeed on YouTube in any niche that you do with any sort of channel. But it's obviously a lot of hard work, a lot of consistency. You got to have a good team, and you got to be willing to mix it up, obviously. No. So I'm not sure if I want to do all that anymore with the content stuff.
Can you expand a little bit on the geopolitical and private intelligence aspect to politics that you're interested in? Because I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I'd love to know more.
I would say less like American politics, and more in terms of like, you know, I don't know, man. You know, I guess yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. Do you have any more specific questions you'd like to ask about that?
That was just a question.
To be
What it
more specific.
well, what are those things? I don't understand what those are.
I don't know, man. I'm really fascinated by how policy gets decided in the world, and you know what's really happening out there with a lot of the think tank groups, and how the companies like BlackRock, right? Like, how does BlackRock work, and how does this work on an individual investor level, from a family level, from a family institution level, from a banking institution level, from a you know, like a IMF level, from a UN level. So that whole entire world very much fascinates me, and I would love to work in that world and see how policies decided, see how agendas are decided, are created, how that passes down through the hierarchy of the companies that are owned by some of these funds. So whether that is in a journalistic standpoint, whether that's in a analytical standpoint, whether that's working for one corporation, company, more of a consultant. But I know people that do more work with companies like that. So, you know, obviously it's a big step away from working with PokerStars or working with GG Poker and working with these companies. So I would say that's more the direction I'm looking to go towards in the future. And then also do the greatest poker events that anyone's ever done in the history of poker. So that is like a large passion of mine that I just can't shake, and that I'll want to do forever. But it just makes a lot of sense to me to be able to build out my ideas in different directions of the world, and use poker as more of a place to do things for fun, versus trying to build a poker brand, or a poker media company, or a poker event series, or a poker operation based online platform, or some sort of online technology based platform that you use on your phone. So I think those are all great options too, and stuff I could focus on. But
I have a funny.
You only get one life at this, right? So I did poker for 15 years as my main focus, my main passion, my main priority. And I thought I did great with that, playing it, content, getting in the business part of it, working with the companies, basically achieving every dream I ever had with it. So I would say now my dreams have shifted a bit.
I have a funny BlackRock story. So this was like 4 or 5 years ago. I was just staying at a hotel in Southern California, and I got back from a night of dinner and drinking, and they were having a conference it was like a post-conference drink session. I said, here's my spot. I had like BlackRock, and I was like, here we go. And I don't really know what I was thinking, but I was like, I'm going to mingle. And I just ran in there, and I was just like pretending to be a part of the conference and talking to people. And then eventually I would always go, and I don't know if Bitcoin was 15K or 10K or 5K or whatever it was at the time. But I was like, this Bitcoin thing is going to be big. And they're like, oh God, you're a Bitcoin guy. And I just went from like person to person, just jumping in, talking about Bitcoin with every single BlackRock person. I eventually got either kicked out or no one would talk to me anymore. I forget. It was a few drinks deep, but I told them, you're all going to see Bitcoin's going to the moon.
Yeah, they're probably more of like the traditional asset sort of mindset versus the alternative cryptocurrency new asset, which a lot of us are so entrenched in the crypto space that we're, everyone has that sort of viewpoint, not necessarily seeing it from a outsider perspective who deals with other asset classes that are also worth a large amount. So we see crypto as like the greatest thing ever, which it certainly could be. But from my experience looking at crypto now, there's a lot of it just seems like a lot of fugazis going on here, man. Like I thought poker scams were bad, and then I found the crypto world, and now crypto NFT world. These scams like make our boy Bryn Kenny, who's bringing the fucking shaman on there, and allegedly doing every single trick in the book to be able to maintain a competitive advantage in the business in 2019, 20. Like what I'm seeing in that world is just fucking insane. So when I come back to this, and that was the first story, I was like, sounds like, it's kind of good to be home, right? It's good to be home in the traditional world out there, and here where in the other world, like it is some, they wear the suit with the nice coat and shake your hand, and then they fuck you real hard. Whereas in poker, at least you kind of see them coming a little bit. You kind of know the tricks and what they're up to.
Or they're wearing the Bitcoin Latinum hat. One last thing before we switch gears into our next subject. I want to just talk about your time away as a whole. Would you say that it improved your happiness and productiveness? And then also, did it help you with your physical and mental health?
Definitely, man. I think not being just like, when you're on Twitter and you're taking in so many words that people are saying to you, and you take in their energy, and it's easy to let those people control your thoughts and control your beliefs and really create your reality for you. So I think that being by myself and only talking to one or two people, it's very different of a vibe, but overall it made me much happier. It made me much more at peace. It made me much less stressed out. My habits were good. I was able to be more consistent with my diet, and finally just, not kind of slack in the discipline areas. Like right now when I'm working hard, like I'm locked in for 12 hours a day, your discipline starts to lack at that end of the day, when, especially for your diet and combined with your workouts, is where a lot of your bad habits for eating food, overindulging, getting out of line, drinking too much, those can really start to hurt you. So I feel like when I was away, I was doing not much of that. And now that I'm back doing poker stuff, I've been going out a lot more, going out because I know so many people, and so many people come to town in Vegas. So they always invite me out to dinners, to nightclubs, to have a good time. Obviously, I love the nightclub. I love having a good time. So those things compound quite fast to where your sleep's poor, your eating habits are poor, you're drinking too much, you're meeting people that are debatably not necessarily that good for you. And then you keep compounding that until eventually you kind of can go fucking crazy if you're not holding yourself accountable and you're not being self-aware of what your habits actually are. So I feel like in the past, I was able to, I just sort of lose track of that when I'm working and when I'm focusing on content, focusing on really trying to maintain a lot of relationships, versus when I wasn't. It was just like, it kind of felt like heaven. And it does feel great. It's kind of boring after a while, but it was very much peaceful and definitely a lot more healthier in every area of my life.
Do you think that it's possible to strike a healthy balance, or do you think it's one of those things that once you get going down the path, it's kind of like for me, when I start betting on sports, if I'm flipping for sides on games or whatever it is, I feel like you're like, oh, I'll do it just Saturday. I'll do it on Sunday. I'll do it on Monday. And then before you know it, you're betting the midday baseball Wednesday game. I actually never went that far, but I know people that have. Um, and it's also kind of like that with drinking. It's kind of like if you drink on Friday, I'll have some drinks on Saturday. What's one more on Sunday? Do you feel like there's a healthy balance that you can actually achieve with social media, or is it one of those things where you just get more and more addicted and you just end up cycling and cycling, and you just kind of can't let go? What do you think a healthy balance for social media looks like?
Yeah, it's a good question, Doug, because if I guess like I always justified my social media usage as it's part of my business. So if a part of my business is to communicate with people and to know what's happening and all these different like one big advantage that I had in poker is I just knew a lot of shit happening everywhere. So I kept up with every content creator, every operator. I talk with the media, I talk with the companies, I talk with the CEOs, I talk with the players, and I just had so much of this information about everything kind of going on in my mind that and to me, I just felt like that's what I had to do. So is there a way to balance that more? I think it's being super mindful and saying like, hey, I can only spend a certain amount of time. But I guess in the past, I've thought that sacrifice comes to a detriment of what really allows me to be good at what I'm doing. Maybe I think that also is kind of delusional too, and not necessarily true. It's just sort of like a justification to continue doing the strategy and that has been working versus like trying something new and saying, okay, like less is more. And really, like you could argue, just focus completely on YouTube and focus on podcasting, which is what I think I'm best at, versus really, I guess, being as deep a part of the poker Twitter world as I've been in the past, and being as deep a part of the poker community and all the issues and knowing what's happening. And you could argue that I could just create my own ecosystem like the vloggers have done and just not give a fuck about any of these things, not give a fuck about who's cheating who and what person's tweeting this and who had this tournament win, and literally just go fucking play poker like I love to do my entire career and just enjoy myself. So in terms of finding the balance, I mean, that's something that obviously I need to really, really reconsider. Like I really need to reconsider what I'm doing right now, how I'm thinking about it. And I think that's all going to come in time. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself to figure that out, because you can this is why it took me for so long to come back, is that I was like, this is why I came back really. I was just had so much anxiety about, well, what am I going to do now?
Dude, I mean, you're preaching to the choir on that, man.
Right.
I went through this exact thing like 2 or 3, not to cut you off, but I went through this exact thing like 2, 3, 4 years ago, where I had done all the things I sort of set out to do. And then I was doing a lot of things day to day that I didn't really enjoy. And I realized that I was kind of going down a road where I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life. And I took a year off basically, where I didn't really do much. And I just tried to think about, what do I want to do in my life? And the sad thing was, my takeaway at the end of that year was, I don't know. And so I kind of just went headfirst back into all the things I was working on before, because look, like maybe some of the stuff I don't love doing, but I'd rather at least be busy than dealing with this endless barrage of what am I going to do with my life that really makes me happy, and I'm just kind of wasting away day to day. I felt like, at least when I'm busy and I have things I'm building and I'm happy about, that at least I have stuff that takes my time and I can put my effort towards. Whereas when you're just sort of out there on your own doing nothing, you're just kind of wasting away.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I guess like a different way to think about it for me would be, I would reframe it and say, instead of wasting away, you're more enjoying the present. And in our minds, the present has to be some sort of like career achievement or some sort of goal that we're working towards. But maybe you can just have no goal. Maybe your goal is just to be present and live in the moment and enjoy the nature and enjoy the people that are around you. So I think, I could do that right now. I could drastically change my lifestyle. I could, I'd really have to cut ties with a lot of people. And I think that's, for me, I just really missed a lot of the poker people. Like I missed you. I miss Landon. I miss fucking my boy, Rob Young. I miss seeing these guys on Twitter. I miss seeing the girls on Twitter. I've really missed a lot of the community, because I've been a part of the community for so long that like, you just don't realize how important the community is, how important the people are. And I think I'm just real grateful for all the people I've met. There's been a lot of terrible people, of course, I've met in poker. A lot of people, right? A lot of people you don't want to spend time with, you wouldn't want to talk with. But I've also met my best friends in poker, and I've met the people I've known my entire life. So
we have a lot to be thankful for with poker. And I think for both of us, we're probably both a little bit past the loving to wake up and play poker every day part of our lives. But at least for me, and I'm pretty sure for you too, like I'm very thankful for everything poker has given me and for the people that I have met. And I mean, almost all my best friends I've met from poker, and poker has really given me a lot. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
I don't want to get emotional, but I haven't really talked much about this kind of stuff. So it is what it is, right? I mean, I don't know. Some people care. They don't give a fuck. Some people do care. I've just been someone that's really cared about it. And, you learn to appreciate relationships and people when you're by yourself, and yeah. So I don't know. I'll let you check another topic. I don't want to keep talking.
That's totally fine, man. And the people appreciate it. We're gonna jump into a quick advertisement here because it seems like probably a good time. How did you know, Joey? Joey, you're ready. You're ready for this.
I'm ready.
Okay, guys, here we go. We're doing this manually. For the next year, we're going to be tracking $100,000 of flexUSD, the world's first interest-earning stablecoin by CoinFLEX. I put $100,000 of my own money into a CoinFLEX.us account, and each week we'll be checking in to see how much interest has been earned and be giving away all that interest to you, the listeners. All you have to do is tweet at me at Doug Polk Vids with hashtag flexUSD to go into the draw, and 10 people will be randomly selected at the end of the month. All tweets that mention at Doug Polk Vids and include the phrase hashtag flexUSD will be entered in the draw. This week, flexUSD has been paying an average rate of 14.5% right into your account 3 times a day. flexUSD has now paid over $27 million in interest to holders since it started a year ago. Get paid just by holding flexUSD, no staking or lockups required. This week, we've earned $288 just for holding flexUSD. We'll be giving away all this away at the end of the month, so make sure to comment below, and you could be one of the lucky winners to get your hands on some free flexUSD. That brings our total balance to $100,288 so far and counting. Make sure to stay tuned and comment on each week's podcast to go into the draw. Special thanks to CoinFLEX.us for making this happen. I had to do it manually here, so we'll go back to the half and half screen. So you guys, if you want to enter,
so wait a second. Let me. So I was on the stream last night, right? And I was doing a deep dive on CoinFLEX because you invited me down to a great event at the lodge, and you said, "Hey, Big Poppy, do you want to do some commentary for one of our high stakes games?" And I was like, "Well, let me do some DD on what the hell CoinFLEX is." So we were on the stream last night on Twitch, and we're going through CoinFLEX. So what you're describing, it sounds like it's a bankroll challenge that you never lose on, and you basically just print money. This is what I learned about when I started learning about banking. I was like, it's crazy the different ways that you can structure your investments, like how real estate works and how real estate's different from art and how art's different from fucking the new projects in DeFi like this. So can you just real quickly explain to me, how are you able to offer such a high rate when the traditional savings account offers you 0.06, and now other companies are being regulated for offering these exchanges like BlockFi? I think they're one of the companies that got hit. So can you explain exactly how this is different? It sounds like you guys are a liquidity provider for customers who want to get assets and they're willing to pay a high rate. And then out of that rate, instead of the company taking the rate as profit, they're redistributing that as yield to the holders of their asset in order, I'm imagining, is like a marketing thing. And so can you maybe clarify a little bit, like just for me on that, just so I know more about it?
Yeah, for sure. So for starters, the rate your bank pays you in your checking account or whatever, they're just fleecing you. They basically pay you no money and they use your money to make money. So you're getting paid $0 back on your money in your bank. As for this product specifically, this product is slightly different than a lot of those products that were being offered on different things like BlockFi, like Celsius, like even FTX, to my understanding. Those products are taking your money and using various strategies to make money. A lot of them were in decentralized finance. So they would take your money, they would enter these DeFi protocols, and then they'd take the yield, and then they would profit that and be paying you a rate to make that money. So they were basically borrowing your money to do DeFi strategies and make money with it. This is a repo market. So essentially, people are borrowing and lending cryptocurrency on a market. All of the money all the fees that are paid to lend are passed on to the people that are providing the liquidity of the stablecoin. So it's fully backed one-to-one by USDC. The repo market's profits are being passed on to the users of flexUSD. So it's not like there's some DeFi mechanics going on here where essentially there's protocol risk and there's shit coins and there's all these tokens. It's basically just they're taking the repo market and passing the profit on to you, the end user.
So this is kind of like when PokerStars would give you Supernova Elite reward status, and instead of now they just keep all that fucking money until you go fuck yourself. Before they would have given you back 70%. So in a way, that was like, it seconds like a version of that, where except you obviously had to keep contributing instead of just like putting the money in the account, and you contributed that by raking the money. But it sounds kind of like something like in a way, right? How would you sort of like compare it to just for poker players, right? Because I am trying to better understand. It does make some sense what you're saying. The lenders and borrowers, they're exchanging assets. To exchange that asset in the marketplace, they have to pay a fee instead of the corporation company keeping that all those fees or using the fees on something else. In this situation, they're redistributing it to asset holders. I'm imagining to incentivize them to continue to use the platform more and continue to borrow and lend on there, and then keep holding the asset. And then they make more money by having more funds under management, and then also accumulating more of a percentage of that fees that are on that situation.
The money is fully backed 1-to-1 USDC, redeemable at any time. So it's not like something like Tether where you send them money, you don't know what they're doing with it. It's all USDC backed. So at any point you can mint flexUSD or burn flexUSD back into USDC. So my understanding is they're not using that money to make money. It's essentially just offering liquidity to the repo market. But we would need to get like a real CoinFLEX expert in here to break down all the exact mechanics and specifics, because I don't want to see something that's off. But my understanding of this is that it is fully redeemable for USDC. I know that. And the yields, by the way, 5 to 15% is not crazy. Our inflation is like 8%. Like, for example, if inflation held at 8% and the bottom end of flexUSD happened here, just to play devil's advocate on flexUSD for a moment, you would actually net lose money in purchase power. Now, if inflation drops and or the yields end up being more like 10, 12%, obviously you make money. But this isn't the same as like when for example, UST is just saying, or rather Luna was saying, we'll pay you 19% no matter what by printing coins, right? That's completely different. I did a video on this sort of explaining the difference between the two recently over my crypto channel. People might want to check out. But basically the idea is you're taking the repo market and using the money made via the repo market and passing it on to the people that are flexUSD holders.
So one quick question is that why would you want to do this? And then we'll go back to me, right? But why would you want to represent and bring this a part of your brand when you already have one of the best brands in poker? You're basically an expert at content, expert at playing. Now you're getting your chops from the operation standpoint. So why would you bring in the crypto sponsorship and CoinFLEX sponsorship? Because it seems like a kind of a risk where if that, like, let's say you can continue to do exactly what you're doing in poker literally forever and have a dominating position in the market and basically be one of the best at what you do for as long as you want to do it. So in that situation, why would you want to have, because I'm thinking about this myself, right? Because like what you're describing sounds kind of risky to me. And even though like you know a lot more about this, so you're like, yeah, I mean, the risk is pretty low. But why would you, from working it in as such a public part of who you are and who your personality is and your brand is, why did you decide to do that?
So for starters, it's not strange for someone to be sponsored by a cryptocurrency exchange.
I agree.
You could ask the same thing to Tom Brady. Hey, Tom Brady, why are you sponsored by a cryptocurrency exchange? What do you think the answer to that is?
Probably it opens up a lot of opportunities when you work with these companies that you don't even know where things lead to. So not only 1, to make money, 2, to get in the space, 3, to learn more, 4, to keep going down that path, and 5, because you really believe in what you're doing and you think that it offers value and upside to the people that you're, and this doesn't always work out, right? Of course, this doesn't always happen. And of course, it's not everyone feels that way about their partnerships and their endorsements and their ambassadorships. But for you, I imagine that you must strongly believe in this product and you must believe that it does offer value.
Yeah,
you must know that the feedback that's going to come, it doesn't matter because it's not true.
So the reason that I partner with CoinFLEX is financial gain, obviously. They're my sponsor, the sponsor of this podcast. I've never been sponsored by anyone ever. I've been incredibly picky with my deals. I've declined almost every deal that's come my way. So when I looked at CoinFLEX specifically, first I did research as to the company. I talked to a lot of friends about CoinFLEX. I talked with people about the founders. Everyone just had great things to say. Then I looked at what they were actually offering. They're trying to create things that actually create value in the space. They're not just another one of the million sort of spin-offs, like clones of some other thing, of the next thing, clone of the next thing. They're doing innovative stuff, and they're good people. Some of them are ex-poker people. They love the poker space. They love what I'm doing. They made me a good offer, and essentially I really believe in the company. So it was kind of a perfect situation where I could actually take a sponsor, because I've never taken a sponsor before, you know. This is the only one I've ever taken in the history of me doing content. And one of the things that to kind of bring it full circle, I've done a lot of content for free. I've net lost money on YouTube directly, down money on YouTube, but I did it to build my brand, to build my name. So the end goal of that is to be able to promote yourself, promote your companies, and get sponsored. So, you know, obviously, if a sponsor was considering sponsoring me and they weren't going to pay me a reasonable salary or a reasonable equity share or whatever it would be, I wouldn't entertain it. And then obviously, if I thought that the company wasn't operating legitimately, I wouldn't take it. But this was a perfect blend of, it was a great offer and they're a great company, and I'm happy to work with them.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. I mean, some people in the chat say money. Like, the thing about it is not for money for Doug, because you can basically make money from a lot of partnerships and sponsorships once you're at a certain point of your brand. So for Doug, he could partner with a lot of companies, right? If he wants to get paid money, like, that's not a hard thing to do. He can get a sponsor in there to pay him. You can go to MyBookie right now. MyBookie might give him 7 figures to be one of the primary sponsors of anything Doug might to do it. So it's not really about that. It's
shoot me his
you want the MyBookie contact information? I'll give it to you. I know.
I really do like the CoinFLEX guys though, Joey.
Yeah, I'm gonna meet them.
Good,
yeah,
I'm
the CoinFLEX event down at the lodge. I haven't checked out the lodge yet. I'm excited about that. But whatever. We can move on. I'll let you take back over. I'm getting excited. I'm getting fired up. I'm getting passionate. I got questions for you,
not
Poppy.
Public information.
Okay. Why is it really
secret, not announced? Just let's we're doing this is
coming.
Joey, it's great to have you back. It's great to have you back.
I'm fired up, man. I'm excited.
If someone wasn't dropping info on things that aren't public about me, and if it was anyone other than you, would feel bad. Okay, let's move back into some other topics now that Joey has fully blown up my spot.
You haven't announced that yet? Are you kidding me?
Oh God, man.
Why not?
This is going great. Okay, let's get back on track. Joey.
Let's get back on track.
So it was the Bryn Kenny scandal that really you just couldn't hang out any longer. You had to jump back in there. What was it about that one specifically that caught your attention?
Bro, I mean, this guy, first of all, right? Shout out to our guy, Bryn Kenny. This guy comes on the podcast and like a fucking shaman, and he talks so different than everyone else in poker that, you know, the kimono, sorry, I came on the podcast with the kimono, right? Whatever. And he's just such like a different kind of guy. Plus, he's the top tournament player winnings guy of all time. This is supposed to be your guy, the flagship of poker, Phil Hellmuth, fucking Bryn Kenny. You got Dan Negreanu, you got Doug Polk, Phil Galfond. You got these like flagship people, and then this guy Bryn Kenny. I mean, fuck, dude. Once I heard this guy talked about yoga, I was listening to Martin Zamani. Once I saw you in the blazer with the pen, I knew something was wrong. Something was up. And then I heard Martin Zamani say if he played lower stakes, he would have to play lower stakes if he didn't do yoga for the day. And I lost my fucking mind. I was like, this is the funniest thing I have ever heard anyone say in my entire life, that the guy couldn't, if he didn't do fucking yoga, the Bryn would make him play. And I'm like, oh my God, like what the fuck is going on here? And I just remember I was like, you know, I gotta like, is this really happening? Is this the state of poker? Like, I thought this was happening, right? I'm for sure this stuff's going down, and now it's coming out, and I'm like, oh my God, like it was all happening. You know, I was always suspecting this all happened. It was a big reason why I stopped playing a lot of online. Is like, you can beat online, you can make money online, but it's like, is that where you want to put your? And this is actually, it's like, do I want to keep getting really good at poker, or should I get really good at something else? And I thought about it from a standpoint like, well, you don't need to be really good at poker to make money at poker. You can just be really good at game selecting. And you don't necessarily need to do that online. You can do that live. And if you want to do that online, there's a lot more resources and places to do that now where you're in charge of the environment or you're working with the people who are in charge of the environment. So it was just like, online poker is just so shady and there's just so easy to do a bunch of fucked up shit. And if you're the operators and some of these operators like don't give a fuck about what their people are doing, their players are doing, and they don't know how to stop it. And they don't, maybe why would they want to stop it sometimes? So it just, when this came out, I was like, oh my God, I've never heard anyone say this stuff publicly. So I just wanted to get back in the mix. I wanted to see what happened. I wanted to get Britt on the podcast and be like, yo, like what's going on here, which still might happen. So I think for me, it was like a perfect storm of events that took place. And the hype was there. Man, the people were excited. They were calling for it. You got to give people what they want sometimes. So I think those were some big catalysts for why I wanted to get back in the mix.
It was an incredible podcast. It was an incredible story. When you look at collusion in online poker, that seems like it would most impact a game like, I don't know, maybe dare I say the great game of Pot Limit Omaha, where if you know the holdings of one other player, the card removal can be so huge that you really are probably just drawing dead in a situation where there's card sharing going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the great game, Pot Limit Omaha, right? Shout out to PLO, shout out to the great game. I mean, that's so true, is that if you are colluding with other people, and if you have 12 cards and I have 3 or 4, even if I have position on a player who's losing a lot of big blinds per 100, and you've got 3 other people in the game, and you're also sharing bankroll, you're sharing equity, you're sharing cards. Like, I could still win sometimes, occasionally, but in the long run, theoretically, I don't think that's an environment you can beat. And of course, you have more control of your environment right now, and there's more options in terms of sites, in terms of how you access those sites, and you can put yourself in a good position to avoid that happening. But as we start to scale up the stakes, like, we know how these people are in poker, they're playing a different game. Like, they're playing, how do I do these things? They're not playing like, oh, I'm going to go log on and try to play by myself for the next 6 months and then win money. They're saying like, no, how do I manipulate the current system to get the desired outcome that I want? And if that answer is I go to Club GG, I launch a home game, I send 5 people an invite, 3 of the people I know, 2 of the people, right? Like, it's really hard to overcome those environments. So you can try to keep away from those environments and try to protect yourself and try to know the host and try to know who the other players are. But obviously we know how easy it is to get around that, and there's just no guarantee. So the answers to me are like, bet your game very strongly. If you're gonna play online, play more live, or play lower stakes where the risk is just lower. So to me, like, those are basically the options. And I'm like, I guess it makes sense, but I guess also, right, sometimes you just want other challenges out there in life. And I think investing is so fun. And I'm kind of, I'm a noob at investing, and in some ways it's, you are embarrassed in some ways because you're so used to being really good at what you're talking about, that when you go from being an expert at what you're talking about to not necessarily being that knowledgeable, and then people, they start tearing into what you're saying, and that could make you self-conscious and make you not want to share those kind of things like that. So I personally like being at the beginning of that stage of that, because I already know that the only difference between me and someone who knows what the fuck they're talking about is they spent more time than I did in this, and they met the really good people. So with the YouTube these days and the internet these days, I can listen to the smartest people in whatever sector I choose on repeat all day long, answering questions and sharing their best practice viewpoints on things. So it's just never been easier to learn anything out there with some practice and effort and hard work and repetition. So, for me, that was a big, I kind of just explaining more about, kind of answering the first question, where did I go? A lot of these things came to be a part of why I made that decision. But this is one main theme of mine, which is just like the state of poker, the state of PLO. And one of the reasons why, Doug, my favorite game now currently is Heads Up No One Hold'em, because it's just you and one-on-one with another person, and you don't got to worry as much about the dollar shit happening. So I've been really liking that game a lot lately. Heads Up No One Hold'em. It's probably one of my favorite games right now.
Preaching to the choir on that one. Going back to the cheating aspect of this, though, what should happen to players that get outed as cheaters?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, right? You got this Jake and Ali thing. You got the Bryn stuff. I don't think, I guess for me, I think about it, right? If it's Joey Stars, what am I going to do, right? If you're coming on Joey Stars, you're making 50 accounts, you're using the RTA, you're running stables where you're ghosting people in. I don't want your fucking business, right? Like there's a lot of poker sites out there. Go play one of those other sites. I politely ask those people, like, I don't want them around. So if it's my events, if it's the big poppy series of poker, then do I want those players at the events? It's a good question, because on the surface, I would say I don't think so. But when you think about that and you say, okay, are you going to ban them? Are you going to remove them from making a living? How do you vet the information? What type of information is it? How long is the ban for? How long is the penalty for? Those are all a lot of real serious questions that I think could go either way in some ways. And
word on the street is that Bryn and Ali have been at least one tournament stop recently where all of a sudden they went from playing in these events to just, maybe I'll spend the day on the beach until I leave.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably like a temporary adjustment that some of these sites are making. I know there's a big push behind the scenes. I've been talking to people behind the scenes in terms of, are there going to form like a blacklist? Is there going to be like some sort of group of people that come together and decide potential outcomes of these situations when they might arise? So it just seems like what else are these guys up to? That's sort of what I'm wondering. Like, what else are people up to? This is just the stuff that we know. So to me, is it like, is the adjustment need to be extreme where you decide like, what, if you guys are involved in this, even if you might be like, I'd rather just not deal with you? Is that a potential solution to that? Or is that out of line? Is that even something that you can do? Does it differ in America versus overseas? So I'm not surprised to see PokerStars take that stance, because they have been, and it seemed like things like this were happening on their site too. So it makes sense that they might have more proof. So they might say, oh yeah, we banned 30 of your accounts. Like, you're not coming to our live events. And we maybe didn't feel that way before, but now policies change due to whatever else that has come up now. And maybe discussions like this really matter, right? I think that's what you and me never realized, Doug. And maybe you realize it. I never realized it, is that the discussions we have, for better or worse, this is the power of the media, is that it's what they give a lot of weight to our words. And they give a lot of credibility and respect to the things that we say. So when we're talking about this, I take this very seriously, because I know that there are people who are in positions of influence and power in these companies who are going to say, well, Joey and Doug think about it like this. So maybe I start thinking about it that way. And that can really influence change. And I think if we really want to make a difference in these issues, we need to be on the operations side, which is what I think is great about that you do in the lodge, is like, if you got a problem that the World Series of Poker ain't streaming a ladies event, well, why don't you stream your own fucking ladies event then? Versus complaining about everyone else and what everyone else is doing. Because I know in the past, we've obviously been very vocal about what's happening in the poker world, because we had our own view about how these things should go, what the event should be, how should the players be respected, how should the players be treated, how should the payouts be handled, how should these incidents be handled. We've had a lot of very passionate viewpoints we've shared for many years. And now I feel like it's time for us to say, well, show me what, like, let's see, you know what I mean? Like, you got ideas, you got theories, like, let's see what the fucking ideas are. Let's see what the theories are. And let's see how you execute and lead by example, versus maybe critiquing some people and then, you're not necessarily involved in that. So that's why I think it's great that you and the rest of the guys got with the lodge. And now you get to see what it's like. Is it that easy? Is it that hard? Is it what you imagine it to be? Is it not what you imagine it to be? So I think that the poker world's evolving and it's changing, and it's combining the new school people, the old school corporate people. And now these new sort of rules and these new ways that things are done are being established right now. So figuring out what things should go, what should happen in these situations with these kind of players, I think is really important. So I'm curious what you think about that, because you obviously operate a card room that could potentially be an online poker operator one day, and you'll have to deal with issues like this.
Great questions. For starters, when you made the comparison, or rather you made the point rather, that the personalities in the space, what we say, actually can play a role in what happens to some of these players and what should happen to these issues. Absolutely the case. And I think the best example of that is when you look at sports, like let's just say, for example, basketball. I mean, a lot of times it's the personalities in the space, or like the media personalities in the space, that end up getting to vote on all the big awards. They sort of set the narrative. They basically decide what to talk about. And when they talk about it, it becomes the conversation. In poker, I think that while it's in a much smaller scope, it's in a much smaller space, the impact of individuals like me, or you talking about it, I think is actually more significant sort of per person, because there are way less people really weighing in on these kinds of issues. There really aren't many. And I think that's one of the reasons why people really identify with your content, and why some people I think identify with my content, is that we kind of got in there on all of the subjects when people sort of didn't want to. And I mean, one of the best examples for you is the Mike Postle thing. I don't know how many hundreds of hours you spent deep diving every live stream of all time at Stone's Casino, but you got in there and you really said, let's talk about this cheating. Let's talk about these hands, get in the mix. And a lot of people didn't want to get in that. A lot of people don't want to go into those kinds of areas because they don't want to end up potentially saying something wrong. They don't want to get sued. They don't want to be looked at incorrectly. That one was a bit of a slam dunk, so maybe it's not the best example. But I guess the point that I'm really highlighting is we definitely do get to have an opinion that matters and impacts the space in the way that we should approach it. Talking about the lodge specifically, it's just so difficult, Joey, because let's just say, for example, we decided that our card room was going to ban people that we saw were banned on GG Poker. Well, now we're banning people with really no idea what the evidence is against them exactly. All we know is that they're being banned. So I don't think it's really going to matter unless the lodge starts to run a high roller circuit that currently doesn't seem very likely. But for example, let's just say a day came where Ali or Jake or Bryn, not that I see any of those guys ever come into the lodge, but let's say they show up at the lodge ready to play in a tournament. We're going to say, oh, you're banned because somebody else banned you and we heard that you did things? Or do we need to have some kind of burden of proof? Does it matter? Should there be some sort of council that information is submitted to? Will these big companies have any reason to submit that information, right? Opens up their liability. If GG Poker essentially gives information to people that allows these people to then go on lists that prevent their action, do they open up the opportunity for countersuit? Or you could maybe go the other way on this, which is, hey, card rooms are private places. Well, I guess it depends on the place. They are in Texas. They're public places also. Whatever it might be, they're businesses. And businesses can decide who plays there or doesn't play there. And if they think that you're cheating, which is making games unfair for their other players, they just ban you, and that's fucking it. You don't really get recourse here as a player at these rooms or on these websites. So I guess you can go either way here. My current way is, look, I hate cheating, Joey. I think it's the worst thing in poker. I think it's probably the number one issue that we have in poker is cheating, just as a general concept in all the fashions that it occurs in. But are we going to then leap towards, hey, someone banned you, so you're cheating, so I'm going to ban you? It just feels like it might be a step too far. And I would have a hard time going to my staff at the lodge and saying, hey, we need to just make this list of people that we banned because I saw online that someone else banned them.
Right. So what you're describing, I mean, that's why, like, when people set up organized blacklist, like, I was like, that's not going to work, because if GG Poker bans you, like, for what? For ACR Poker, my man Phil Nagy clicking the fucking ban button on you, what's my boy Phil Nagy banning you for? I don't know.
If ACR bans you, you deserved it.
That's what I'm saying. You got to be like a real twisted guy or girl to get banned on ACR. I mean, yeah, ACR. No, I mean, I was actually literally playing on ACR last night on stream, and I was playing jackpots against 2 Ukrainians, and they basically chip dumped in the game to me. And I was like, on stream, I go, you got to be fucking kidding me, right? So it was, whatever.
Are you saying right here on the podcast you are anti-Ukraine? I just want that to be clear. Anti-Ukraine, right?
I am anti-Ukrainians colluding against me, and the jackpot sit and goes on ACR specifically, correct? Yes.
So Joey against Ukrainians. That's just the first few words. You guys can
Okay.
quote
That's
aggregate
a big story, right? That's still a big story in the mainstream, isn't it?
It still is, I think.
Okay, first I want to go back to what you just said, right? So people talk about a poker council, and I would say a poker council more does, whether you could debate, right, or you could get into some sort of rule system or some sort of workflow or process where what they say actually does carry some sort of ramifications. I mean, you kind of see this with, like, the World Health Organization and with the CDC, is that how these boards and these think tanks and these NGOs are structured, and how much control officially or unofficially they have over situations, right, is very unknown sometimes. And you don't really know, like, who's got the hierarchy. Is it a law that decides it? Is it emergency that decides it? Is it the emergency youth authorization that decides it? Like, how are these things done? So when you think about that in poker with a poker council and how exactly would that work, to me, I see it more as like an advisory and a consulting board where you have relationships with the operators, and then the operators would bring you in and they would take your advice and they would decide if they want to follow. That's how I look at advising. When I go work with someone on what I think that they should do, what do I think Doug Polk should do for the lodge? When I go in there and if they say, oh, we'll pay you to come in, here's my advice. I'm not like, if you don't use my advice, like, you know, like you don't have to necessarily use advice. I sort of see this as the same kind of thing where the council is made up of people with relationships in the industry who have information, who have knowledge, who have experience, who are willing to take this kind of information, this role seriously and really have an aligned goal in terms of the difference that they want to make. And then, of course, the idea of compensation comes in. And that's where things always get dicey in this situation, because these people that are in this board are usually probably successful in the industry that they're in. So they have a lot of relationships with the corporations. And obviously, if they make a favorable advice that might help to benefit the bottom line of a business with someone that they have a invested interest in doing well, this is where the conflicts of interest all start to come in and things start to get really haywire. So I don't know what the solutions are for that in this industry, because everything is so intertwined. Like, I know basically everybody. So I have relationships with a large amount of people. And in this situation, if something happens at the lodge and then they go, oh, okay, well, you know, what do you think would happen with the lodge? I'm like, well, you know, I could see me being in a tough spot with that situation where I don't, you know what I mean? You'd have to say, well, I'm going to disregard that. And but can that happen? And would that happen? And how would that look like? And what would that be like? So those are all things I think that would deeply need to be considered. But I do think the general idea of having groups like that of knowledgeable people getting together, brainstorming ideas, coming up with solutions, and then figuring out ways to implement those ideas and solutions is how the world works and other industries. And in poker, we don't really have that. Whereas if you go in the political world, it's how many of these things are there's a billion of these things like that. Every rich person kind of starts their own fucking think tank group or something like that, or funds these groups. So I am surprised we don't see more of that in poker. I'm curious if you think that would be a good idea, some sort of council or advisory board or something like that, who could at least maybe have more information to maybe give some advice like that.
Two big problems with that idea, I think. First is, how does it have teeth, right? Because you can have a council advising shit, but if it has no teeth, it's totally irrelevant. And then the second thing is, who ends up on that board? Mm-hmm. Because the people you would most want on that board have the least to gain by being there and give up the most opportunity cost. So if you want to have a board of like 5 people or 7 people who really care and don't have an incentive, that's fine. But how are you going to find 7 people that essentially are willing to give up that time to do this correctly? And then the people that should be doing it need to be the people that are the most successful in poker. Mm-hmm. So how do we create this in a way that actually makes sense? Like, if you were like Doug, if Chacun and Rob Young and you and Phil Galfond and yourself, and we'll just throw in a Daniel Negreanu, and maybe we'll close this out with a Garrett Adelstein, want to start a coalition where issues come up and we say what we think and we recommend things, then by all means, that would be phenomenal. But there's no chance that you're going to get 7 people like that to come together and spend a lot of time and effort doing something like that for no gain and a lot of work, and potentially take a lot of heat for. There's no upside, costs you money. And then let's just say that someone's friends with you and they know you're on the board. Maybe you don't get invited to stuff. Maybe they don't want you in a game. Maybe they don't like one of your rulings. You're ruling on your friends. You're ruling on your opponents. What if, like, for example, I'm a high roller 20 rag on the board and Ali comes up and I know he's really good, even though he's also doing some unethical things on the side. You know what? I think no Ali in any of my tournaments anymore, Joey. I'm leaning towards that. How do we remove the incentives on that? How do we make it so these people are actually incentivized to want to be a part of it? I think it's one of those ideas where it makes a lot of sense in theory, but when we think about how it practically plays out, I'm not really sure that there's something that ends up making sense.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, right? Like, how do you, I mean, these are all people that are busy, right? A lot of things going on. A lot of people are doing a lot of things out there. What would be the reason for them to come together outside of they feel strongly about it and they want to make a difference on it? And I guess you could then say, well, is there a way to be transparent? By the way, here I see the chat. They're calling for more diversity on the board. They're calling for a women's coalition. Veronica's in the chat calling for the women's coalition, and obviously, right, all things that are interesting to think about as well too in this situation. But yeah, I think that it kind of has to be people that really want to be a part of it, that want to be potentially transparent about the situation, and that want to deal with the heat, and that don't mind dealing with that. And I think there are people that do qualify as that, who can say, you know, if I get some backlash for this from people or from the community, then I'll fucking deal with it. And obviously people like that are not common, because nobody wants to deal with the wrath of the backlash from the people. Like, even if it's fun, it's not fun at the same time. You know, maybe some people like it. I don't know. Maybe you like it, right? I like it in some ways too. I've actually thought about just going full time doing that, because it sounds easier than doing what I do now, which is to, you know, like hold some tweets in the drafts, right? I guess you could say. So it's a good question, Doug. And I think those are things that need to be thought about, need to be considered. And really, you don't know what the trials and tribulations are going to be until you try to start something like that. And before, I think we've had some efforts like that in the past. I don't know exactly what the generation before us was trying for this. I could look back and I could certainly get some ideas, but I think it's worth trying and exploring, because the upside, it could be massive, and it might not have teeth now, and it might not be the way that we envision it now, but in 4 years from now, in 7 years from now, this could be something that now has a lot of experience. And now you've seen, okay, well, it can make a difference in this area. And you know what? Maybe this guy did get fucking banned for some reason, right? And that wasn't a good idea. So let's fix that kind of situation.
Well,
too.
he probably was. I mean, all these bans were probably very legitimate, and these guys, like, let's just like put all of the bullshit to the side. I'm just gonna give my personal opinion. It's my opinion that these guys were doing a variety of super unethical stuff, and 100% absolutely deserve the ban. My opinion. But I think if we just put all the stuff to the side based on the information I've heard from people, based on the sites, based on inside people that I'm talking about, I don't think these guys should be allowed in fucking anything, straight up. Yeah. But that's just sort of my opinion. And we have to talk about what kind of protocols do we set moving forward as a group, as a unit. And maybe these are just egregious cases where these guys should obviously, again, in my opinion, I'm going to say it a million times so that the Bryn Kenny legal team doesn't come after me. In my opinion, these are fairly egregious. And I also want to put them on levels. Like, I think that Ali seems like he's the worst offender from the information that's been available to me.
Sad? Isn't that kind of sad in some ways, bro? Like, this guy was supposed to be like the next great young guy, and like then you find out, like, I mean, I was like, oh,
it's brutal, dude.
Isn't it kind of fucked? I mean, I get it, brutal. Right? It makes sense, but it's just like, this guy is one of the best, and he's still got to be doing all this stuff to be able to win. And I mean, it makes sense, right? They just want to make a lot of money and get it while it's good. I'm good, whatever, right? I understand the other side of it, but I guess from like a poker fan standpoint, it's just like, really, you know, like, you got, like, this is what PokerGo's trotting out there. Fucking all these players in the events, they're glorifying them, they're putting them on the fucking holding the trophies. I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what kind of fucking, you know, whatever is what it is. But I guess I see that as a fan, and from my perspective, and I'm just like,
oh, it's brutal, man. It's especially brutal because he was one of the first Upswing members, and we promoted him a bunch. Like, look, all he's doing well now. Look, this is Upswing Poker. Like, if you take Upswing Poker, this could be you one day. Like, look how successful he is. And then it starts breaking, like, oh yeah, probably doing some scummy stuff to win on the side. You're just like, great.
Yeah. I want to talk about the Bryn Kenny thing real quick. The Bryn Kenny thing, right? So on his side of things, right? So a lot of allegations came out against this guy. And then the Martin Zamani guy was like, I got all this proof on text messages. He apparently like leaks or releases like 2 years of text messages. Poker News goes through the text messages and finds some things about ghosting, which Bryn then says, okay, you know what? I was ghosting, right? Surprise, Bryn, you were ghosting. Like, who would have been surprised by that? None of us were surprised by that, right? Obviously, on the podcast with Sarah Herring, he's like, I didn't do that. Now it comes out, he's like, I did it. So does it make you, because in his defense, right, nothing else has been really verified yet from these things. So yeah, maybe some of Lauren Roberts, but so on his side, right, a lot of stuff we're hearing is like allegedly or in the background, or like, hey, you know, maybe this is going on, sort of thing, like a text message from someone that they're not providing. I haven't seen evidence yet. So do you feel like that we don't have enough evidence, especially against Bryn Kenny specifically, to come out with this? Because you've taken a very aggressive stance against this guy. And I'm obviously more empathetic than you are about the situation to Bryn Kenny, because, you know, I had him on the show. Like, I like the guy's personality. I'm not saying I want to do business with the fucking guy. I'm not trying to play with the guy. I'm not trying to play high rollers and stake and put him in the, you know what I mean? Like, that's not my.
Well, are we here to be friends with people because they came on the show, or are we here to say what's right? I do.
And I agree, but
I
then
do want to say
that's what I'm trying to figure out. What's right in this situation? Because the evidence I'm seeing isn't that.
All right, so Ali and I think Ali is the number one. Let me think about how to phrase this. So many caveats. In terms of what information is publicly available about these people, it seems to me like Ali is the worst, the most egregious offender, and then Jake Schindler is somewhere close. I think there's a pretty noticeable gap, and then I think we're looking at Bryn under that in some capacity. It's certain that Bryn ghosted. He's admitted to ghosting. But then we also have a bunch of other stuff from Bryn here that is pretty unethical. Like, for example, telling horses to ghost other horses. According to those text logs that were posted, there's a message in there where he says to Martin, hey, this guy's going to coach you today. Half the buy-in on your stake, half on his. That's very clearly orchestrating multi-accounting and ghosting, clear as day. So this isn't just him ghosting. This is him ordering people that work for him to ghost other people. Mm-hmm. If we have an example of that with just those two people, knowing just how many people that Bryn has staked and have worked for Bryn over the years, how many times this has gone on? And then you think about the fact that sometimes these events are into events where he's putting other people in and or putting essentially fish in to hit guarantees and then using them as sort of bait and then having the team, quote unquote, say, do what's right for the team. I mean, look, like, this isn't just like a run of the mill. Someone was deep and he saw a hand. Oh, maybe I jammed the turn. This is systematic and strategic organizing of ghosting in order to make money at other people's expense. It's pretty egregious. Now, as far as the Sergey stuff goes, one of his horses, Sergey, banned for RTA, had a laptop up running sims during tournaments, according to Martin. You're backing this guy that is using RTA, and he says that, you know, he didn't know about that or whatever he said, when then it came out later, hey, you had to have known about this for whatever reason. It was either in the logs or maybe like whatever the reason came out. So basically, was Bryn himself using RTA in real time to beat people online? I think probably not. It's unclear. I would say probably not. But was he certainly setting up all this entire organization to ghost people at the expense of players? And or was he at least willing to go along with someone that is using RTA? That stuff all seems true. So I don't know. It really depends. Where are we going to set the line on when you get a ban? And another interesting caveat here, by the way, Joey, is from my talks with people, so maybe some more recreational people as well. The jury, I think, is a little bit out on ghosting versus RTA. In my mind, RTA is way worse because you're finding solutions. You cannot beat that. But to a lot of recreational players, they have a very big problem with ghosting. They think that is really fucked up to do that. And if you're organizing this and ghosting players, I think a lot of business guys would not want to play with a player like that ever again and would want those people banned from events.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah. I mean, this ghosting stuff, to me, like, I just assume a lot of this going on in these events, like the stables, they have the main guys, they have the ghost, and it just seemed, but this guy was so, like, he was like the first, like, basically when GG Poker, when I met with the GG Poker guy, who is one of the main starters of the site, the founder of the site, and they were trying to get me to work with them with the Pot Limit wallet ecosystem. Bryn Kenny was the guy who connected me to that situation and was like, yeah, like I'm like the first guy on here. This is going to be a huge site. So I basically met with these guys when no one really knew who the fuck they were and what was going on. But I just knew they had this really high rake. And I was like, bro, like, I cannot work with you guys. You guys literally have like uncapped rake or some crazy shit like that at high stakes PLO. Like, there's 0% chance I can ever promote this at all. So to then hear that this guy had this very well thought out, like, tested scheme with the ghosting stuff, like what you're saying, where there's breaking down percentages. I mean, to me, I'm like, damn, like, what? Like, what's going on, bro? Like, you're making a lot of this money with rake. You're basically have this like license to affiliate anyone in the world. Like, then you got to take it even this step farther, do that and that. You know what I mean? It's just like, come on. But we've seen this in poker where these people, they get a little and then they take a lot and they go overboard. And really, like, what is the ramifications? Like, what really happened with this guy? Martin Samani came on a Doug Polk podcast and said these things. Like, is this going to impact his life long term? Debatable, like you just said, right? A lot of people might not want to play with the guy, but is it
I think this will have impact. I think this is going to have
so. Okay,
I definitely think so. Yeah. first off, the story had so many elements that were just obviously true. And Bryn has on the record said that some of these elements are true. Like even the shaman and psychic stuff, his responses very much indicated that they were true. His response was like, well, that's between two consenting adults or whatever happened. I mean, it was obvious. Okay, the shaman thing is real. So I feel like there are so many aspects of the story that we know are true. And then we have some degree of logs. And then, I mean, apparently, hypothetically, or whether this is confirmed or not, I don't know, but he's at events, not playing tournaments. I don't know, man. I think this is going to have, and some of the conversations I've had behind the scenes with other people, there's a real movement right now to ban these guys from everything. Just period. You just can't play in this stuff. I think Ali and Jake more than Bryn, but all of them are in the conversation. This is going to have real impact, at least in this. And I guess that is, if there's a silver lining to this whole subject, it's that, hey, we talk about all these problems in poker. We talk about all this bad stuff. Guess what? Some of the most egregious offenders, they're banned from some tournaments. The public knows there are at least some short-term repercussions. Hey, that's actually something. Maybe that's actually the justice system at work.
Yeah, I mean, maybe so. I mean, we'll see what happens with it. And if it is something that it comes up and then they do ban, there's obviously the option to potentially reverse that as well too. So it's not like a lot of these things are all still being figured out. And we are trying to figure out what is the way people can deal with it and what is the way companies can deal with it. So I think that if that is the case, we'll see what happens. And then maybe that will incentivize some people to do things differently. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily know. It might cause some people to kind of maybe take a step back, but is it really going to solve the bigger issues here? Like, probably not. I don't think so at all. But, maybe it's drawing more awareness to it, and maybe it's going to motivate certain operators to get more serious about it. But I just see it as it's just so easy. Like with the ghosting stuff, people said, what is ghosting? Ghosting basically, like, let's say that me and Doug got a stable, and Rich or Charles, you're a part of our stable. You make it deep in a tournament. Well, do I want you final tabling tournament, or would I want Fader Holes final tabling tournament, right? Well, I'd probably want Fader Holes. Well, what if I just go, all right, get off the fucking account. Fedor's taken over and Fedor plays the final table. That's what ghosting is. Ghosting is where you have someone else come in, they play in the background, sometimes more experience, right? And then they take over. And that sounds great. I would agree. That sounds great to have the closer come in, right? I'd love to have the fucking closer come in, rest it up. Come on, closer, get in here. But that's not how poker works. I know that when people hear it, they don't know poker. They're like, oh, it makes sense. But
the closer, I like it.
Right. Like they got Rivera. Come on. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're closing out the tournament. So that's not how poker works. So and people,
well, actually, it does appear it is how it works sometimes, but it shouldn't, is I guess the main
pretty much. Yeah.
All right. We have a couple more subjects here I want to get to. We're already an hour and a half in.
Okay.
Time flies, Joey. Flies when we're chatting on these.
I hear a lot of I always get a lot of positive feedback about our podcast specifically. Whenever I talk, they're always like, oh man, I love those podcasts you with Doug Polk. I'm like, damn, I hear that. It's surprising how many people and then I thought about this the other day and I was like, damn, like me and this guy have been talking with each other on fucking video since 2014. I went back and listened to the first podcast, like 20 minutes in, you mentioned buying Bitcoin. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. This guy mentions Bitcoin. The first podcast guest I ever had on was you. And I'm just like, what is I guess it was Caramont technically for the PLO thing. But with the other show, it was you. And I was like, damn, we've been talking so long. We've done so many episodes. And, but yeah, the feedback's always so great. So,
how did that Bitcoin buy work out from there?
It would have been worked out great if I would have bought it in 2014 when you first showed.
You didn't buy when I came on your pod. I told you what to do and you didn't do it.
Well, the thing is, you also showed it many other times after that. And I still didn't buy it too. Because you're like, Doug, what's going on with crypto these days? You're like, well, so I was, I don't know, man. That's why I got NFTs. That's why I took this aggressive stance in my life. I was like, I fucked up on this before. I cannot miss out on these NFTs. I got to get in the mix now and play to earn and just learn this space and learn what's happening before 4 years pass. And I'm like, fuck, I should have.
Can I give you a tip?
Yeah, I'll give me a tip. Yeah, go ahead.
Buy Bitcoin.
Buy Bitcoin. Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that too.
Solid.
I would agree with that too.
It's not flashy. It's not going to be as good as 2014.
Yeah.
Still good.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, that's my number one thesis. Buy Bitcoin too, by the way. But
it has been a lot of years, by the way, Joey, and it's been good talking with you. I feel like we've caught up so many times, and the fans love it. They do love it, and I think there's a little bit of nostalgia when we do a podcast because there's just been so many years of our pods where I think people tune in. It's a little walk down memory lane, and the audience likes that. And you guys at home, we appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah. Where do you want to take us next?
We're
Our host. Well, how are you liking hosting podcasts? You're hosting podcasts before you literally
Hey,
did
whose
this pod.
podcast is that? Where we take? You're taking us
I
next.
got questions. Sorry, go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead. I got
No,
questions. Go
it's
ahead.
good, man. It's good.
Go ahead.
I've definitely honed in on some skills, and there's a preparation aspect to being the host that you take for granted as a guest.
Mm-hmm.
You're a guest, you pop on, you're like, we're talking about stuff, and then the host, their job is to kind of keep it on track and to have an itinerary, take some notes, know where you're heading with it, think about what's the best way to get a good talk with your guest out. Some guests talk more, some talk less, but yeah, you got to be prepared, and you learn some things, you learn some strategies, you learn some ways to go. But it's been good. I've been enjoying it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. I think it's like art. I always consider like art, where it's just you never know where it's going to go or how it's going to go, or if it's going to be entertaining or if it's going to be not, or fans are going to love it or not going to love it. I personally always enjoy. It's like I didn't realize how much I got my stimulating conversation from my content when I was away, and I wasn't really having as much that stimulating conversation. I was like, fuck, like that's the greatest thing about a podcast. You just get to have great talks with people that are fucking doing some cool shit that you would never have a 3 hour. Like we would never sit down for 3 hours really, unless we were doing a podcast.
Well, I don't do 3 hour podcasts. I'm leaving that all. Oh, that's all your territory.
You're not
Joey.
doing 3 or what?
Not often. Sometimes we get close, but usually we do 1.5, 2 hours. I wouldn't want to step on your toes. For your podcast, I think if you look at overall, you've just had the best guest lineup possible. You have good relationships with everyone. You had all kinds of huge notable names in your podcast. I have a little more of certain sort of clicks I'm in or out of. Like there's certain guys that it would feel a little weird inviting on the podcast, but you've really had all of the big names, more or less, couple exceptions, but you've had more or less every big name and or successful person kind of off the grid. You've had everybody. Your podcast, the number of guests you had over the number of years, it's just simply the best poker specific podcast, period. It's ever been. It's not even remotely close. You should have won whatever stupid award it was every single year you had a podcast. It was number one by a mile.
Well, thanks, Doug. And I mean, yeah, I that was always my goal without knowing it, right? Was just like, I didn't realize you end up doing it for 7 years and you have on all these great people. And then you look back and I was like, damn, like I had on the best online guys at the time when they were literally the best PLO players, the best Hold'em players, guys that I played against a lot, that I knew a lot. And then you got to build relationships with your regular guests. Like you, Timex is always like, think about it, right? Since I stopped doing podcasts, Phil Galfon had to start his own fucking YouTube channel because he came on my podcast all the time. And then he really wasn't on the podcast anymore. So he's like, oh, I should probably have my own distribution platform. And now he's making more YouTube content as well too. So there was a lot of these great players and really great personalities that would be regular guests I'd have on that I thought, like, I just loved featuring them. I loved talking with them.
Man, his YouTube channel, it's kind of brutal.
He's learning. There's
a lot of new mistakes going on here.
Yeah, I know. We can get into that, but yeah, I think the content's great. So with Phil, you know, his content's always been some of PLO stuff.
This is the classic Phil Galfon problem. Phil Galfon has been 5-star quality content for forever. I've said this since I started Upswing. If you don't go to Upswing, that's fine. Go to Run It Once. Straight up. They've just had the best stuff for as long as I can remember. I remember his coaching sites back in the day were great. Every time he talks, it's well-reasoned. Incredibly smart guy. Super nice guy. But the online, I recognize the irony of my last 24 hours. But the public-facing front and the way that they handle some of the marketing stuff it's just been so poorly done. And some of the decisions that got made on some of these businesses, like not having tournaments on a poker site, I have no idea how they thought that was a good idea. That was going to be a goddamn disaster, and it was. And then when I look at some of these videos on YouTube, like, can somebody tell the guy like videos that are less than 10 minutes are going to bomb? I mean, this is just basic YouTube 101 stuff. He's got like all these like 4-minute videos, bro. Your watch time is going to be way too low. What are you doing? I don't know. Basically, it's like I feel like a lot of times. Let me give you another example about Phil Galfon. When they would write emails, like advertising emails for Run It Once, I'd look at them and they're very professionally written. Maybe they've changed over the years. I haven't looked in a few years now, but they'd be very professionally written. And I remember thinking, I want Upswing emails to look like that. And if we make them like very formal, very dense, like very informational heavy, we looked at the numbers. People don't read them. People don't like that. They like to think that they do. So we split test all these email styles and you end up with the ones that work better. And those are more marketing looking. I don't like that it's like that, Joey. I
Mhm.
wish that we lived in the world that Phil Galfond makes stuff in, because he makes such good stuff, and it would be great if it was like that. But there are all these rules of marketing that work and are real, and I feel like Phil should have embraced all that stuff more. Bit of a side tangent, but carry on.
No, yeah, I see. I mean, I see what you're saying, and it feels like with those guys, they haven't necessarily wanted to go. So some companies, they just don't want to use certain marketing tactics. Like even in retail strategies, there's certain, like in Vegas, for example, there's certain companies that are the injury lawyers who are always on billboards, and other companies are like the billboard people who do this stuff are the cringiest fucking people in town. And there's this whole meta in the community in terms of like billboard lawyers. So I feel like in this situation, there's certain people in poker who like to embrace best practices strategies for the platform that they're on, and they sort of have this goal or agenda. Whereas other companies maybe see it differently, and then they don't necessarily want to use these sort of tactics or strategies that they would consider, whatever, right? Certain people consider the tactics you use to be clickbaity or to you dramatic or whatever. You might argue that's not the case at all, and maybe sometimes it is the case. Whereas other companies that I've talked to, because I talk to a lot of these companies, they see it like I don't necessarily want it to be that way. I want it to be different. I want it to feel different.
Yeah, but are we going to live in the world? Are we going to live in the world we live in, or are we
I'm not, and I see where you're coming from, right? But not every business, just because they don't want to do it. I mean, just because a business sucks, like, or if someone thinks it's bad, or someone thinks the strategy is bad, or if somebody's not making money from it, does that mean that like the people running the business should be unhappy about it? Like maybe it's providing another service for people where it's providing a good service and people really love the product and people really connect with it. And they might not be using the best marketing practices, but the reward that comes from that comes in different ways.
Do you want to win, or do you want to be right?
I see what you're saying. I agree.
And for me personally, I want to win. And this is my approach in poker. I was never one of the most brilliant poker minds.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all aspects of my game, I took from people as I moved up in stakes, where I anytime I saw something that I thought was good, I threw away my strategy and took theirs. And I was always willing to just give up inferior losing strategies for the right ones. And the reality is people have very short attention spans. Sorry, guys. They have very short attention spans, and you need to use aggressive marketing language to be successful with them in the majority of instances. There are some exceptions. I'm sure if you're working in financial services, you want to have more of a professional style. I'm sure there's a bunch of other good examples as well. But on average, people do not have that much time, and they're not going to give you 7 minutes to figure out what you're up to. You get several seconds. You need to make those seconds count. That's how marketing works in the day and age.
Well, that's changing now especially with TikTok and more short form content and more shorts being pushed on the algorithm in general on Instagram. And I mean, Snapchat's always been like that, but TikTok especially, even though they're going to more long form now. So it's kind of interesting platform, but everything's going shorter, and there's more people that are trying harder. There's athletes getting into this. There's the professional corporations are getting into this. They're putting more budgets into it. People are doing this for a living. They're making YouTube for a living. Everyone's making strategy. Like we see this poker where the people start coming out with training sites, and then the competition gets tougher. The better players get better. They start to push the barrier even further, and that adjusts the strategies and the meta amongst the people that are playing that game. And I feel like content creation's now coming to that point where there are like YouTube squads, stables, coaches, all this kind of shit, where the things that worked in 2014 in certain niches could still potentially work now. But the more established niches, like you got to try a little bit differently. You got to do something different. You got to bring something different to the market to really stand out. And then you got to consistently do that for an extended period of time either way. So, I'm reevaluating my strategy. But in poker, it does seem like the old strategy of going up, show some pocket aces and playing a vlog at the casino with a big ass fucking chip stack.
Well, vlogs are the number one form. Vlogs are the number one form of content. And it just really shows like how completely delusional I am, because I've just had a real knack for whenever it comes to what people will like. And this is why I try not to predict what people will like, because I'm terrible at it. I remember when I was in high school, I played a game called Warcraft 3. There was a mod called Dota. I said, this is so stupid. I'm never going to play this game. It'll never be popular. Ended up becoming the most popular game type of all time. Great call on my side. And with the vlogs, like early on, I saw the vlogs. I was just like, I don't understand this. I don't see why this is not going to be successful. Totally wrong. Became the single most important and valuable and widely watched form of poker content that there is. So there are some formulas that just work. And this is an instance where I was wrong. Like I was wrong about what I thought was the best way to produce content on YouTube. The vlog format crushes it. It's tried and true, and it's the biggest form of poker content on YouTube today.
I mean, it makes sense, right? Because it's such a, I mean, I know we were like anti-vloggers in some ways because we just didn't like vlogs. I mean, I personally still don't want vlogs, right? I'm not to say that I've gone away from vlogs.
Are you too good for vlogs, Joey?
I don't know. I don't know watch vlogs.
Oh wow.
I watch a few vlogs, some people I know maybe, but I would say that I don't watch any vlogs of anything like that. So I guess I do watch vlogs. It's just formatted differently, and maybe I should give these vlogs a chance. So, but it makes sense. It's easy to follow. It's a great story. You know, people love the casino. They love the chips. And it seems like these vlogs are, I mean, there's a lot of reasons I like vlogs, but it seems like the vlogs are really even taken off further and further. And they really don't even appear to have a fucking ceiling to it. So it seems like the potential for vlogs is just being untapped. And I mean, we've seen some young guys who've now started to come up and really start to establish themselves. And they are going to be the next generation of who's in poker, and more are coming every day because they're inspired by someone like a Brad Owen or someone like a Rampage. And I met a lot of people who came up watching our content on YouTube, and now a lot of the next people are going to come up watching vloggers, and then watching Lex Feldhaus or watching Spraggy on Twitch, watching Kevin Martin on Twitch. So I think it's great that there's so much diversity of the content. Like, dude, it's crazy. There's fucking 400, 200 streams in one day now. Like, when can you imagine? Like, there's
Which day was that?
There's multiple high stakes live streams being shown some days at one time. Like the one day there was you, there's Live at the Bike, there's Hustler, there was like a Triton Poker, there was a King's Casino. I was like, oh my God, this is like madness. So it's crazy. And this is where I think the biggest opportunity is right now, is that there's so much content out there. There's just too much bullshit out there. And there's too many people doing too much shit that even if they're good, it's really fucking hard to keep up with it all. So
well, the thing is in today's day. Oh, sorry. Did you
go ahead. Yeah.
The thing is, there's a pro and a con here. By the way, we've gotten way the hell off track of whatever the hell question I was going to ask, but we'll just continue on with this line because it's a good conversation. The thing is, there's a pro and a con here. The pro is that the more people that get brought into poker, the more viewership there is to go around. And so, like, for example, what Brad Owen has done on YouTube has fundamentally changed the game of poker content on YouTube. He's just completely changed it. I mean, the guy's averaging 500-600K views a video now, if not more. He has done 130 million views on YouTube. Actually, I saw this the other day. He surpassed my view count, Joey. I think as of today, Brad Owen has surpassed my total viewership on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. I had a good run. It's fine. You got to let them know when someone else got to take over the reins. Completely changed the game of content on YouTube. And then how many people have found poker now because of Brad? How many new people are going to watch streams because of Brad? And then there are lots of other good examples of that too. Andrew's growing a good sized audience as well. How many guys has Andrew brought in? The thing about Andrew too is he was more of like the original guy, right? He brought people in. He pioneered the space. He brought in people that became audience members for all the other vloggers as well. Those two guys fundamentally changed the game on YouTube, and they've changed the game for poker content. And when I look at vloggers like that, I look at the newer vloggers, I look at the streams, I look at all this content. The real pro here is that I look at things like the Hustler stream that you were involved in. The real pro here is that we're bringing in new people that have never known about poker. And the more we do that, the better we'll be for the longevity of the game. That's the pro. The con is it has never been more competitive to compete for people's viewership in today's environment. Never been more competitive.
Right. I mean, is that an issue? I don't know. I think that's
well. It depends. Ultimately, the winner is the viewer,
right?
And the other winner is poker as a whole. But we're going to have way more people that end up losing in terms of content because it's simply harder to compete for market share. I think. Maybe there are more. Maybe there are more winners.
I mean,
maybe there are more winners.
Maybe, but I think poker is just so fucking popular that like you can still just make content and not need to make any money from it and still really enjoy yourself and still do other things and make it in your spare time. So I'm very curious to see where live poker in America goes. Like that's where I really want to get more involved in live poker in America specifically, because I sort of feel like online is alive, but it's also just dead to me now. And even if it's not dead, like to me, it's just kind of dead, especially with the state of things are in America. Not to say you can't go to Delaware and get a nice game on PokerStars or go to Party Poker in fucking Michigan and bet at GM and find some soft players, not saying that the games are dead and not because more players want to play. But I would say like some sort of like organized structure for online poker in America is dead right now, and maybe someone else brings it back. But I don't know what's gonna. I just feel like there are some ideas that are gonna be done here soon that haven't been done yet, and I do think there are gonna be some pretty big losers that we may have thought were winners in the past. So
it would have been great to have you on board with the lodge, bro. If you had been around during that period of time, but you were doing your mission.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I thought about that. I mean, yeah, it was like interesting because I was looking into getting into the live card room space in America. Like I met with a few card rooms, met with some people in Texas, and then it makes sense for the people with big channels to get into the operating business, because instead of you doing a partnership where somebody pays you $10,000 and you come play an event, now you just can send all of your audience to the actual card room that you have. So it makes sense to do like a full tilt thing in some ways before the full tilt got out of line, where the players team up, they run the operation, they have people that are in there who hopefully know better than they do to help oversee the operation, and then they can continue doing their thing on the playing side of things, and then promoting the game and getting better at the game and helping to build their channels up to bring people in. So I think it was like a natural idea, and I think it's great. I mean, I saw Andrew talked about it too, but I wasn't even sure if I was going to keep doing it. So I was like, do I really want to, should I get involved in that? Like, I don't know. So, but obviously now you look back on it and you say, oh, it's probably a good idea, but it's still early, Poppy. We're still young in life. So I think,
maybe we keep breaking these guarantees. Maybe, maybe you made the right choice.
Yeah. What happened? You didn't hit the guarantee. I mean,
no. So that's actually not true. We've only had a few tournaments that haven't made the guarantees so far. And we haven't lost that much, but we had a tournament going on this weekend that I don't know how I just didn't think about this on the schedule. And we looked at the schedule so many times. By the end of it, I was just like, it's a schedule. But we have an $800 tournament that goes for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and we made it a $750K guarantee, which is a lot of buy-ins. And it goes Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So our big push needs to happen on a Tuesday, and we need 550 entrants today. And I think we had like 200 yesterday. So basically what I'm saying is there's a giveaway going on at the lodge. Oh, unless a miracle happens here.
Yeah, Tuesday in Texas, not the meta for filling up a guarantee, huh? I mean, I could see it eventually where it could get to that, but if there's other series in town or a lot of people,
the morning fight is killing it today. 250 in the morning fight, Joey. 250 in the morning fight. In the morning fight.
You sound like Rob Young. This kind of thing's Rob Young.
I'm not going to get wrecked. Oh my God.
Life of an operator.
On a Tuesday? All right.
Maybe you guys did have a huge media campaign on your Twitter, so maybe some people saw the giveaway too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's what pushed the needle.
Oh, dude, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, in terms of getting involved with the lodge, I think that there's still a lot of opportunity to get involved more with the lodge, and especially it sounds like you guys are building out something new with. I mean, listen, I'd love to host the biggest PLO meetup game in the history of Potman Omaha.
I would love to see that.
It feels like the lodge could be a natural partnership in that situation.
Any PLO event. So in general, we're not going to do many PLO events, but any event you want to put on the lodge, we would love to have you. Let's get it going.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds.
We could have a little Joey week. I could organize a bunch of streams. We could have like some games going on, little high stakes, a low stakes, a little meetup game. How about Joe Ingram week at the lodge? Could happen.
Yeah, I think it sounds pretty tempting, right? And I mean this is a big reason why poker to me is different now. Is like you guys are in a card room. That changes the fucking game to me. Before, if I wanted to do something like this, where would I go? I would go to my man Feldman live at the bike, and you could probably work something out there, but it's kind of working with the bike. And now they got Hustler, which certainly is a possibility too. But there really wasn't the opportunity to do things like this and create the game and create the fun. So that's why I started building out some event ideas. Like one event idea we have is a heads up tournament with a very large first place prize pool, combining the poker community with the content creation community. So that's something that we start building out. And then that sort of just like opens up the door for, you can really do anything. And sky's the limit on what the events could be, what the marketing around it could be, who the players involved could be, whether it's content creators in poker, outside of poker, hardcore professional poker players, fucking people from our YouTube chat, shout out to people in the chat. So that's for me is the kind of the brainstorming I'm having is like, is that going to be like a tournament series? Is that going to be one-off meetup games? Is that going to be a series of meetup games? Is that going to be in partnership with other people on a more official level? Because to me, it seems like the way you really succeed is you got to work together with other people in your industry who you have good relationships with, who you guys can all build on that together, and everybody wins in that scenario, the fans, the people involved, and so on. So that's sort of like my philosophy now I'm taking going into all this. And yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, you're one of the first people I'm talking to about it. So I definitely look forward. I know people would love to come to the launch too. So yeah, sounds awesome, man.
We'll get you down there for an undisclosed event that we never mentioned.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Yeah.
What was it like? What was it like here working at the big event at Hustler?
That was really interesting working the Hustler event, because like it was surreal for me to have like an interview with Mr. Beast, because you see these people online a lot, Ninja, and then you see him in person playing poker. And I think to me, what my main takeaway is that I think poker, my thesis is like poker is one of the biggest, it's one of the most popular games in the world. And the only reason it's held back right now is due to regulation issues in America. In that if there was free reign to just really go wild with poker partnerships and content creation and prize pools and sponsorship, that poker would literally be the biggest thing in America. And I'm more sure of that now in some ways, just seeing how great this content is for people that are outside of poker. And once people realize the opportunity poker can give them from an opportunity level, from an exposure level, from a differentiation level in your market, and then from just the places it can take you, I think that a lot of people are going to get into poker, and it's just going to take like Ninja getting obsessed with it and saying, you know what, like, fuck it. Like, let me go a little hard at this. And then the manifestation of that is like the vloggers keep putting up stuff. You're putting out a lot of good stuff. PokerGO starts to put out more stuff. And then it all starts to bubble up into eventually where it's just like, boom, there's just sort of some like output of like, oh my God, that was like the biggest record series we've ever had. And I think we could see that with the World Series this year. And I think we're going to start seeing that as time goes on. And especially as marketing campaigns become more mature in poker, because right now they are fucking terrible. And, you know, most people don't even know what a marketing campaign is. And if they do, like they're not able to really execute that and really drive anything with a real good campaign around something that they're doing an event. So I think once you start to see strategies mature and once budgets start to increase, and it's only a matter of time before this like kind of goes parabolic. So that's sort of and it's easy to argue this and say like, you know what, fuck you, it's not going to happen like that. I agree. I can see that side of things too. But that was my big takeaway from seeing the Hustler, is that Mr. Beast is probably going to put out a great poker video, and that's going to really go crazy because he wants to play a high stakes event. Maybe he could play Doug Polk. I don't know, but
I'll do respect to myself, but trying to put me in the same conversation as Ninja in terms of us both putting out content to help poker is a little unfair to one of those two parties. I'm not going to say a name, but one of those two is slightly bigger than the other. I could see how you might not view it like that. Like it's just so damn close, but I think one might be a little insulting to somebody.
Yeah. To Ninja, you think?
Oh, I think so. I think that's
you think that they're thinking about it like that. They're like,
well, I'm just saying, like, if I put out a poker vlog, then people are like, oh, Doug's vlogging now, huh? And they look at it and I just like do some shitty jokes for 20 minutes, which, you know, but if someone like Ninja puts out a poker vlog, then millions of people view it that have never seen poker before or seen it in very limited capacity. They could be new players. It's like night and day. Like me doing a poker vlog is worth like almost nothing. You could debate it's worth nothing at all. You could debate it never even happened, and then it might not in the future. You could debate it never will happen again.
I disagree completely, because was Brad Owen's first poker vlog worth anything? Right? Is his 400th worth something? Like absolutely. You've done a few vlogs, right? Personally, I think you should do more fucking vlogs, right? If I'm gonna be critical of Doug Polk strategy here, I think that you're not even fucking trying.
I don't even think I'm going to do more vlogs, dude. I'm going to analyze some hands from the stream.
You're kidding me.
Okay, look, actually, so this is a good topic.
Okay.
I absolutely hate having to record hands at the table. It completely kills the experience. Bring a videographer, bro. Joey, what do you mean bring a video editor to record while I'm in the hand? You know, I have to film the hand.
Just bring you can do it. Have a full-time.
I'm going to have a guy recording. I'm gonna have a guy recording. Are you kidding me?
Just put aren't you only playing on stream games? You're only playing stream games. You have access to the whole cart. You have the view. You can have someone like
that's fine. Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
But the idea of me bringing my camera and recording, I like to shoot the shit with the table. I like to joke around. I like to meet people. I like knowing people's names, learn where they're from, talk with them. I like to have a good time at the table socially. That's like the thing I actually enjoy about playing poker is the social aspect of talking with people. And now I have to record. I have pocket tens. I would rather I don't want to say what I'd rather do than do
This
that.
sounds like you're building the next iteration of a poker vlog, which is like maybe another camera person's there, you know, maybe someone else is recording the table with the handheld, you know, like they're no.
I'm gonna analyze hands on my channel. We have a lot of awesome hands to break down. I'll talk some strat. I'll talk about hands I played. I'll do a vlog where I break down me playing on the stream. That's fine.
So
I'm not doing the record at the table anymore thing. It's just too annoying, and it just makes me hate being there too much. I just can't do it.
So I would agree that what you just proposed to me is debatably better. Why do we think that? Because you've obviously had a lot of success with this exact strategy where you, instead of you having to break down high stakes poker hands where you got to call up PokerGo and you're like, yo, can we get the fucking, is it cool if we use this footage? Now you just call up the lodge and you go, I'm gonna make a hand. I'm gonna make videos on the hands I fucking involved with, or people
call the lodge. All right, if you're listening out there, the lodge has this policy. You can use this clip to reference it. Please make content with our content, as long as you're not just taking it and reposting it. Like, use it to analyze hands. Use it to show clips. Use it to. Please take our content and put it out there in the world for people to see. We will not see you. We will say yes, thank you for the share. We appreciate it. Can we give you some more content? Exactly. That's our strategy. We want to expand our stream. Exactly. We are never going to sue anyone unless you're taking our content and hosting it exactly to steal the viewership of the stream. Then we might have to do something. But if you're taking it, you're doing any kind of work with it, funny analysis, even sharing a short clip that's in exact form, I don't care at all. It's great for our stream. Why would I care? I don't get, Joey, can you explain why companies care about this shit? Blows my fucking mind.
I can, because I've obviously been working with these companies for a long time. And the thing is your reaction is similar to mine. I want people like you let me see what people can do. I love it when people do that. I think that's awesome. And the only reason that I think that we and Hustler Casino Live, and I know our boy Thomas working with Poker King WPT, I know why we feel very passionately about this is that we have loved to do this ourselves, to make content of the greatest moments in the history of poker. Like that was something I love. I used to love going through World Series of Poker archive footage and finding like a sick fucking reaction that I watched 1,000 times when I was fucking like 22 years old and getting passionate about poker and clipping that out and posting it. Everyone's like, fuck yeah. Like Kenny Tran, when he goes, no, sick call, right? Like I used to love that. Like, and now basically, PokerGo came in with their strategy. Their strategy was to buy the valuable IP and then say, fuck you guys like can't use it. And you might have used it before, but like and makes sense from a business. I understand that strategy. Like certainly opened my eyes to, I was like, oh, it makes a lot of sense. You just buy the IP and tell everybody else to go fuck themselves. So I can understand that too. All right, or sign the license deal. However you want to necessarily frame the argument, right? You got a license deal or negotiate the fee. What are you going to use it for? Is it this, that, whatever? Okay. So it seems like PokerGo uses that strategy and other companies use that strategy because they want to protect their intellectual property. They want to keep everything in the home base. They want to, the only way you can see it is here, and we don't want anyone profiting or building off our brand or whatever. I don't know if they're still as strict on that stance now because I see it in the Berkey show.
Changed. I think it's
I saw it, and it's going to have to change to them. They're going to, now they got real, like, listen, PokerGo's strategy before, like they're trying to build up their own thing of golf. You got the Masters, you got the Open, you got the Bull. Like they're basically running the golf playbook in some ways. Very high quality camera, $1 million studio, right? Like the fucking quietness with the Ali Najad voice, and their strat, and it makes sense, right? And just run the YouTube, you run the 2017 Doug Polk playbook with the fucking thumbnails, right? Like it's probably going to work. The strategy is going to work out, right? Now, are they going to make money as a business? Are they going to be able to recoup their losses? Are they going to be able to build up the IP to a point where they can license it out and make money off that? I don't know, because who are they going to license the IP out to now? And that CBS Sports, I don't know if they're paying a lot of money, or NBC Sports. I don't know if these guys are paying a lot, not to say it won't change in the future, and not to say you can't repackage it and repurpose the content to something else. But the paywall model with all this other great free content out there, like, to me, and we've always talked about this, is going to run into a challenge. So PokerGo business model was they had the content behind the paywall. It makes sense. We don't want you to fucking use our shit to promote our brand, and that's fine. But I guess the downside is then you get people who are in the industry who are like, well, then, you got the Helmuth match coming up with Scott Seaver. Like, well, I'm not going to talk about it, right? Like, why? Like I don't know. It doesn't seem like they want me to talk about it.
Is that behind a paywall?
I have no idea. I don't even know. That's because I got to the point where I don't even have an interest to know anymore. And I'm not saying I'm like everyone else, but I know there's a lot of people who feel that way. And does that matter for them? Probably not. And does that matter for their business being successful? Like, we don't really know, because they could just build up the PokerGo asset, sell that down the road for $350 million, and they make all that money back. And we're just kind of thinking about it as like, oh, they're not making enough subscribers. Like, they're playing a different game while we're thinking about it in a completely different way. So, but in terms of like how I interact with what they're doing, like, they don't want me to promote what they're doing, then fine. I won't, then I'm not going to promote what you're doing. I'm not going to talk about it. Like, I don't have, like, High Stakes Poker came on. I didn't see the show. Am I going to go watch the show? I don't know. It doesn't seem like they really want me to watch the show personally. That's just the way I personally feel treated by them. And I know these guys too. But so that's how I think about it. And I think now with Hustler Casino Live, with the Lodge, like, you're a different kind of competitor when it comes to this kind of shit, bro. You know what I'm saying? This isn't, you know what I'm saying? This isn't the fucking Live at the Bike. You know what I mean? This is like, you get into it. No shot to those guys, right? No shots at those guys too. But like Feldman, this is a different kind of guy. Like, this guy's thinking differently about this shit. You and the other people at the Lodge are thinking differently about this. PokerGo is not, they're thinking about it their own way. But to me, they're going to start to run into some issues in poker, because now there's a lot of other great content with people that are trying hard that are basically going to be able to do the same playbook that they're doing in some ways. And PokerGo's big advantage is the World Series of Poker and the high stakes poker associations. And if they get with GG Poker, then they have that big operator budget, potentially too, that would help them out. So I think they're still going to do well. But kind of long answer on how I'm thinking about things right now, just to kind of, maybe help you out a little, or maybe help people out there a little bit, kind of think about it some ways. Because I know this is one of my main interest areas of topics in poker specifically.
I'm pretty bearish longer term on PokerGo, but they do have some pretty big advantages. The first advantage is they have what seems to be unlimited funding. They've put together just the absolute nicest possible studio at a major casino. It's just incredible, their studio. It's by far the best set and or area to play poker that there is. Maybe the Triton one's similar. I haven't been out there, but in America, it's certainly number one. And then they also have the ability to pull the largest players in there, because they're in Vegas. It tends to be a place everyone goes to. And then they have high stakes there. And so essentially they can put together games that no one else can. So I think that they have a couple advantages in those regards. I think that they have some incredibly huge disadvantages. I think that the first big disadvantage they have is the overall vibe of playing there is just the goddamn worst. It's every rec complaining that there are pros, and then they have to be really careful which pros they get on. And then even the pros that they have on, a lot of the good ones, they just tank endlessly, and they're not fun, and they don't chat with the table, and they're not having a good time. And essentially the vibe is predatory. Business people are worried about being taken advantage of, and the pros are just not that fun to watch. Simply put. I mean, they're good. If you like good poker, they're great, because the regs are incredible these days. But the overall atmosphere, I played high stakes poker one season, Joey. The soul is completely dead. Completely dead.
Right.
100% dead.
I said this on the Hustler Casino Live. Like, it sort of feels like the new Live at the Bike. And I don't want to group them together, because they're new. They got new ownership. You don't have a Live at the Bike. Someone came in. This is sick. Live at the Bike sold their fucking business before Hustler Casino went on live. So they basically exited while they're on top of the market in the LA live scene. And then someone else came in, took over ownership. And then they said, okay, we're going to revamp the brand. We're going to do some sort of like licensing deal with some version of the Bally's Corporation. I'm not sure exactly what the relationship is. They said maybe they're going to put it on TV. I don't know what that TV relationship looks like, because TV is not necessarily popping right now. So unless you're going to get on like the regular Fox, like whatever, right? But it seems like the new Live at the Bike and PokerGo, like, they have no soul. They have no, like, there's no like excitement. When I watch PokerGo, I'm not like, oh, everyone's like, when I used to watch World Series of Poker, people were fucking hype. Like, I was like, this is sick. This is like
all the free streams.
What?
People got so hyped for those free streams.
Yeah, even the edited episodes before, right? Like, people.
Oh, you mean the main event ones on ESPN?
Yeah, I mean, even the $1,500 horse event that they fucking, like a final table horse event, felt like, oh, this is people are like excited to be here. There's like energy, there's like fun, there's excitement. And when I see the PokerGO thing now, I'm like, there really isn't much of that. And when I see Live at the Bike, I'm like, oh, I don't see much of that either. And I think that's what some of the streams where like it's more open has showed us, is that like we like hearing the shuffling chips. I like hearing people come by. I like seeing the fucking chaos of a bunch of people on the rail in the background, and people like, I don't love the ESPN sort of like futuristic stage where people are like I like the old school feel where the fucking table's crowded. There's just people around and everyone's like, what's happening here? Everyone's like looking like, like I sort of love that feel. So that's what I love about the streams now. And I'm not to say like when I say this is PokerGO, like they can still do this and then edit down the videos for a top 5 hands and put out a video with Dan Negreanu and get 185,000 views on YouTube, right? So it's not that they can't have a successful channel or a lot of views or a lot of subscribers or like people that like it, but in terms of like your experience playing it or like my experience watching it, I feel the same way as you. As I'm just like, this doesn't seem it seems very like inauthentic in some way. It just seems very fake. And
yeah, so I want to talk about PokerGO a little bit. I want to talk about all the streams because you mentioned a bunch of them. So the thing about it is that the original high stakes poker, and I don't know if everyone feels this way or not, but I think there are people that do. The original high stakes poker shows are just simply the absolute pinnacle of poker on TV or in any format, because you had an incredible cast of characters. You had tons of action. You had a lot of hilarious hands. People talked with each other. You had bricks of cash. You had big names. No one had really scammed anyone yet. A lot of those names ended up scamming people or whatever. The business guys weren't burned. The other business guys weren't afraid. There was not nearly the same level of like cheating allegations and things to be worried about. We didn't have solvers. The list just goes on and on and on. The set itself, it wasn't some overproduced cosmic bowling kind of set like at the Bike. It wasn't some glamorous huge stage. It was a room that had a cozy feel to it with people that were interesting. And it's the gold standard for poker content. It's just the absolute nuts. Now, there have been other things that have been pretty good. Poker After Dark was pretty good. I think some of the newer stuff PokerGO has done have been pretty good. I think in today's era, the absolute best poker content going on right now is Hustler. They just have simply the best lineups on average. They can do stuff like the creator game that they put out. But then the quality of the stream, the cameras, the overlay, the graphics, they just do such a phenomenal job. And it's no surprise to me that they've established themselves as sort of the top stream in the space right now, because they do a really good job. Now, the people in a lot of those lineups, I don't know how compelling having 6 business guys with Nit Vertucci is, but as in terms of the setup that they have, I think it's fantastic. And then they are able to pull big names in there and do a great job with it. So when I look at the Lodge stream and then I look at the Hustler stream and then I look at the Bike, where they relaunched, and the relaunch, it's just not a good looking stream. The sound quality is pretty good, but I don't know what I'm looking at. It's way too dark. You can't see anyone. It's just a phenomenally worse product compared to Hustler. And they're new, they'll figure stuff out. But I would have some real concerns as to how successful the Bike is going to be compared to the Hustler, especially because Hustler's doing such a great job. The way that I view the Lodge is, longer term, we're going to go for a very professional setup, but we're still a little ways away from that, because we came in, Joey, and it was one of those spots where it was like, we're going to have to suck it up and swallow a pretty tough pill here, which is the current producer we had to let go. And then we need to get a new stream, but we're building out the room next door. That's going to take months, maybe 6-9 months, however long it takes. It's going to take a long time. So what do? Do we keep the producer while we're eventually going to replace him? But we decided, no, let's just go ahead and start this now. So we had to get rid of our stream so that we could set up a temp stream so that we could have our studio. So it's going to be a long transitional process. But the thing I can say about the Lodge is that I think, first off, we're in a completely different ecosystem here with different personalities that will be somewhat unique to the Lodge. We have a lot of guys that really care about poker and care about the packaging of these streams and care about how good they are to watch. We got Seriously Serious helping us, post streams and clips and thumbnails and all of that. He's obviously the GOAT when it comes to that stuff. We got guys like me, Brad, and Andrew. I think when you have personalities like that, we get a little bit of a competitive advantage where we can pull people in by using our platforms to drive traffic that all the other streams can't. And our focus is really going to be have fun with these streams and bring people on to have a good time. If you've watched the Lodge live streams, and I saw a thread on Reddit like this, and it was a little bit controversial, but the Lodge, if you watch it, has a very different feel than the other streams. I'm sure viewers here will know. It's not like a bunch of guys all trying to act super rich and cool. It's a lot of like straddling, people joking around, people shooting the shit, some maybe not the most optimally played hands, some battling it out. It's a more fun environment where people are really just trying to have a good time. Obviously win, it's still competitive, but it's not a bunch of guys wearing super fancy watches trying to seem like they're a big deal and are worth a lot of money. It's a lot more authentic, and I think that's the kind of direction ultimately that we want to go.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, shout out to Nick Fertucci. I didn't know he's a tight player, but yeah, shout out to Live at the or Hustler. You mentioned Hustler's doing things really well, and obviously Feldman's been putting on shows with Live at the Bike for a long time, so he's got a lot of experience. He's had this vision for a long time. He finally found a partner to build the vision out in terms of working with Nick and working with Hustler, and he's got a team he's been working with for a long time that really know what they're doing, and now they're in control of their own production versus before when they had other partners that they necessarily couldn't put all of that energy and effort into that production. So I feel like we're seeing that manifestation of what was always possible if the situation was just different, right? So I mean, I think that's I'm not real surprised by that. And then you mentioned with Live at the Bike and sort of what they have going on with the screens. Like I kind of like the screens, the futuristic stuff. It looks different. Listen, if Live at the Bike ever wants to sell, again, let me know, hit me up, right? Get in touch with me, and I'll see if I can help facilitate something like that, because I think they got a lot of potential. And but yeah, kind of going to the Lodge. The Lodge to me has the most upside because they've got multiple people who are familiar. Like the potential hasn't even been untapped yet. Let's just be straight about it, right? Like it's still. This is still Q1 of the project to me. So in terms of like where things are going to go with things, and once you start to develop characters and you find a potential Garrett and you find a potential, DQ, the Dairy Queen manager, and you get these characters that pop up and then they start taking on life of their own. And then you start to get creative ideas with the rest of the team. And eventually, like I see the Lodge as has the potential to be a cultural destination for poker players all around the world to want to go see. And then I see that as a brand that could become more involved in American poker in terms of partnering with, I don't see why the Lodge Poker site partnering with fucking Caesars wouldn't be something that is very possible depending on if the brand wanted to partner with Caesars. So I feel like what you guys are building with that to some people might not seem like much. I see this as a complete game changer in terms of what's possible in the industry and sort of setting an example for future people to see, right? Now other people they're wanting to get into the Texas poker scene, right? I'm getting calls, I'm hearing conversations about it. So I feel like it's a new precedent being set that's really going to change the game. So it's exciting to see exactly what that manifestation looks like. And you mentioned more fun. It's very Texas, right?
Yeah, definitely.
People having a good time, big fucking chip stacks. You got Texas accents. You got a lot of on-the-line play. And I think that is what makes Texas great right now. When is that going to last? We don't know, but let's enjoy it while it's here and let's try to make the most out of it. So I feel like it seems like the direction you guys are going with the Lodge, with the content. I mean, not surprising, right? Pretty strong. So I also only up from here.
Yeah, I also think that there is an important difference, which is the Lodge is a poker room. These other streams are stream first, poker second. We're going to make sure our stream is really good. And if at the end of it, when the final hand of the Lodge live stream has been played, hopefully decades and decades from now, if the stream netted out to $0 of profit, that would be fine. Mm-hmm. Because as long as it's popular and it grows, I'm totally happy to reinvest the money back into it. Right now at the Lodge, we're trying to spend the money that we do have to make everything better, expand, more tables, more space, better cards, better chairs, everything that we can do to try and make it better. And so if the stream at the end of it is break even, that's a huge win if it's popular. And so we're fine to spend to make sure that happens. Whereas these other streams, they have to run profitably because they're looking to eventually get acquired, or they are essentially just a stream at a poker room. So our business model is actually different. And because we offer poker and one day we're hoping to expand to other places, our goal can really be build the biggest stream with the most viewership that people love to watch, and do that to promote the brand itself. And don't worry about like having to try and maximize every dollar in the stream. We don't have to do that. Obviously, if the stream makes money, that's great. I'm not against the stream making money, but it puts a different sort of pressure on a stream like that, where it's more geared to promote the room than it would be if the stream is standalone and it's like, we need to make money now. It lets us kind of build first.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's sort of the strategy in some ways you could take with YouTube, where you build up your platform first and then you start to say, okay, well, then how do we potentially turn this into a business? And I think once you have a large distribution platform, the potential for partnerships, whether they're in poker or outside of poker, they really start to flourish and open up. And I think poker hasn't really even tapped into, like I worked with Manscaped, for example. No one else in poker has worked with I think PokerGO actually worked with Manscaped, but they're a good example of a brand that wants to spend, like they would partner with the lodge and they would want to spend money and they would be fun advertisements. And they sent me my own virtual effects for the fucking Manscaped ad, for example, that I did. A great product that all men should have to shave their, nether region. So I should try the product out.
Brought to you by
Manscaped.
All right, Joey, we're getting dangerously into Joe Ingram podcast length territory.
Go ahead.
Let's go with our final topic here today.
Go ahead.
What are your plans for the future?
Are we not covering women in poker?
I think.
Can I just say, I got to say this, right? I feel like the WSOP not putting on the ladies event is like such a disrespectful thing to the ladies of our community. And I will personally volunteer my services to come down there and stream the fucking ladies event if we got to. And I think that the women in poker are just really treated poorly by some of these companies. And especially when you see that, like they go, oh, we can't move the stream because like we got it close to the main event. Like, bro, what the fuck are you guys doing? Why don't we just give the ladies event their own special? Like, let's just make it special. Let's make it. You get ladies that come play the event that literally never play poker. That place is packed every year. To me, that should be something you'd want to celebrate. You'd want to promote. This should be a flagship event that you can bring more great women into the show, and you could have this showcase for the great female ambassadors and the upcoming content creators. And I feel like this is a great platform to do that at. Obviously, World Series Poker ain't fucking thinking anything like that. So to me, I'm not really a big fan of that. And, once again, I offer my services, and hopefully they do decide to move that. Obviously, there's logistics issues and scheduling and all these things that they're going to say are the normal reasons why they can't do that. But to me, like I just really, and I'm not surprised because WSOP kind of, to me, disrespectful to people in a lot of ways. But they're just such a great brand and they put on such a big event that everyone loves. So, they're kind of so around, but we can move past that. I know you don't want to, I know we kind of can go to
look, if we're going to talk about it, we should talk about it. I don't think we should bring it up and say a few things and then just leave it. So I think it's important. The women in poker subject is tough. And one thing that I find is it gets really polarizing really quickly. And it turns into either you're basically for women in poker or you're against women in poker, or you're even just against women or you're for women. And a lot of times in poker, you have to make difficult choices as a company. Like, let me give you an example of one at the lodge. We have a ladies event at the lodge. We have a 3-weekend series. We have it in this series. We have a ladies event. We have to pick when we're going to put it. Now, you kind of need to put it on a weekend so that people are flexible to go play in a bigger event like that. But every Saturday, we have the last flight of a major tournament. So all the Saturdays are just slam booked. The entire room could potentially be filled. We can't put it on those days. So we basically get 3 Sundays that we're going to play. And one thing that I found was the local women that play at our room, they said, hey, can you please put this on the day of the main? Because we play smaller tournaments and we want to have it on day 2 of the main so that we can play the $400 on the first weekend and the $800 on the second. And we can play this tournament on the second day of the main. And then women that come in from out of state say, why are you putting it on second day of the main? You're implying that women won't make day 2 of the main. And I feel like as the room there, I feel like we kind of can't win because either we cave somewhere. It has to go on one of those days. There's just no way around it. We ended up putting it on next Sunday. And so because it's something that our local players wanted more. And then it's like, oh, now you're kind of implying that women can't make day 2 of the main, which is not the case whatsoever. It's just, what are we supposed to do? What day are we supposed to put it? So I'm not defending the World Series of Poker, the decision that they made. I don't know their scheduling. I don't know I don't know the situation. All I'm saying is that sometimes you get put in spots as the room where we want to embrace women in poker. We have a ladies event in our series. We want it to be a cool thing for women to come play. But then we get torn in both these directions, and it's like, well, what are you saying or not saying, and what's the messaging? The messaging is simple. We want to put on a great ladies event and have the most ladies come play. We're not getting into anything past that. We just want to have a great event, and it puts you in these really tough situations.
Yeah, I think you communicating that and being transparent with that is something that is important, and that's something that we don't necessarily see with other series like the World Series of Poker. Like I haven't seen anything about it. Maybe I've seen some of the PokerGo hosts kind of come back and say, they basically send these PokerGo guys out there as the defense systems against all these things, whereas with you, you're literally the one putting the schedule together. And now what you're saying, right, makes sense. And I'm sure a lot of this could apply to World Series of Poker. And are there other answers, right? Is the answer to have a ladies event outside of the tournament series? Is it to, right? Like, it brings up some other questions. And as you're saying, right, maybe there's literally only one good day to do it. And Saturday is just not going to work out. And to do it on a Saturday, you'd have to sacrifice some things, or you'd have to have smaller fields or a bigger room. And so you have to sort of sacrifice, well, people can't play on the Saturday. And it's not that a disrespectful thing. It's just that this is what's going to work logistically for us and for our customer base that we have. So what you're saying, and when you explain it like that, makes a lot of sense. And maybe the solution is say, we're going to have a special ladies event series at this point in time, and it's only going to be for this sort of thing. And maybe that's the
event lady. What do you mean event ladies series?
What?
Well, what do you mean by that sentence? We're going to have a special.
So I think what I've been seeing is that there are certain women's groups who help to organize like a ladies event, sort of like special series where it's 5 events, 6 events. I think there's something at Orleans. We do something like that. I'm not sure if it's during the WSP or not, but it's some companies I'm looking to partner with for some ideas I have involving the ladies of poker specifically. So I was thinking about something like that, where it's like a, I don't know. Like, I don't think
but like the thing is with that, Joey, like, let's just say that 10% of people that play poker are women, or it's in that, maybe it's 8. I don't know exactly. If I put on a series just for them, then I'm saying I don't want the other 90 whatever percent of the players. So usually the best thing to do is to have a series where everyone can come play. And then in there, you have an event for women. That's a reasonable solution. If you put on just for women, you're just shooting yourself in the foot as the room, because you're saying we don't want 92% of poker players. We only want the 8. That's just not a good business decision. It's not a, and people could do whatever they want. If you want to have a women's series, that's by all means go for it. But I'm just saying, as the room, and I look at that, I'm thinking, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just have a ladies event, add a series with other things going on so everyone can come play? Why do we have to make it so that this is really, I guess, the main problem I have? Why do we have to make it so only certain people can play, right? Like we can have a seniors event. That's fine. Part of a series. That's cool. But what if it was only seniors series? Like, why would you do stuff like that? Why wouldn't you want everyone to come play at your room?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I see that standpoint too. So it kind of just comes down to you wanting to make a decision that might not be the best in your eyes for business short term, to, right? Because you're saying, I got to sacrifice allowing this certain demographic to come play, and that's the majority of the demographic. So that sounds kind of fucking stupid, but maybe there's other upside that come in other ways that might not seem immediate on the surface as well too. But I mean, what you're saying, right? Hard to argue with that. Makes a lot of sense too.
I guess
so I mean, it's right. Very easy, in my opinion, to make a case against what I'm saying. Because like a bunch of mainly dudes playing poker, right? Why don't we just fucking have these big tournaments and throw a ladies event in there? Everyone's been doing it. It's been going on for years. Like, let's kind of keep it like that. So it's hard to argue against that, but I'm at least trying to come up with some ideas to make a case for it, because I do think that it's a big issue, that, and more women are getting into the game, and more content creators are being built up as ambassadors. And eventually we are going to see more players like that in the game. So I do think that for people in our position, I think it's important to be an advocate, because I've seen other people who haven't been an advocate for the women. I feel like they've been very hostile in some ways in terms of like women in poker specifically. So I think that, maybe it's a terrible idea what I'm saying, and maybe this doesn't make sense for business. They're punting away fucking money, and I got to see this for myself. I got to go through it, experience it myself. But maybe there's some rooms that are different, better fits, and maybe the lodge isn't a good fit for this, and maybe it's a smaller room that's a better fit for something like this too, to explore.
So for on my side of things, like I just really try not to get into the whole identity politics of this group needs this and that group needs this, and I try and just have things be inclusive. And let's just say for a moment, like if a woman comes to the lodge, she can play any game that she wants, and our games are good. It's a good place for women to play poker. People are way friendlier than most places. Overall, I think we have an awesome room for women to come play at. But that doesn't mean we don't want men to come play either. That doesn't mean that, like, I don't want to get into this whole, like, this group of people, not that group of people, not this group of people. Like, have a good room, let people come play, and
Yeah.
do your best to maintain that. I think that's what's important. As for hostility towards women in poker and treating women badly, there's been so many examples of that. I think it's horrific. If I'm at the table, I'm never going to put up with anyone talking to a woman whatsoever in that regard. I've seen a bunch of that happen, or I've seen online this happening all the time. And I feel terrible that happens to women in poker. I mean, that it's horrible. Look, I know it happens because I see the comments in some of my videos when people are talking and there's a woman in the hand. I see the comments. They're terrible. I know this has to happen to women, and we need to do a better job of policing that. And I think that if you're at a table where something is happening, you should step in and stop someone from harassing people of any kind. I know that's like a very vague blanket statement, but I think that we do need to do a better job of that in poker. But this whole, like, let's just get into, like, everything is for just a certain group of people to play and not other people. I think you're getting into exclusive instead of being inclusive.
Yeah, I mean, I see, and like, I don't know if that is the answer, to be as segregated in some ways as we are describing, right? I just think about it like, and by the way, what you're saying about the feedback women have gave my girl Benny Kenny, obviously wrote thread. Like, I see the fucking things these people say in the comments, and I have had you and me, right? We've had so many negative comments, a lot of mainly positive comments given our way, but I've been doing this on YouTube since 2009. I've got a lot of negative comments from people about saying everything you could possibly even think about saying to a person. So, and I see what they say about women specifically, and I'm like, this is, it's just fucking crazy. So I know that this happens live. A lot of women have dealt with it. I've heard a lot of stories. It's to me, it's like, of course you advocate, don't treat people like that at the poker table, but to me, that's not a realistic solution. But I think as people who have voices in the community, it's on us to help to set the precedent for what other people say. So when you have Dan Negreanu going on Twitter and fucking, in my opinion, being pretty fucking hostile to the women in poker, and even though he might say, oh, I'm just opposing a debate and this and that, whatever, I think, to me, like, that's a pretty bad example. Because if you're watching that, when I see the way he was kind of talking about the women in poker the other day on Twitter, I was like, damn, bro, like, this is the guy, this is one of our main guys. Like, to me, it feels like you should be more friendly in that situation. Of course, he can do whatever the fuck he wants to do, and that's on me to decide, well, how do I want to treat it? And ultimately, at the end of the day, then if I want to do something about it, then I have to create the content. I got a platform, I got a channel. Do I want to make shows more related to these sorts of ideas that we're talking about right now? If the events that I'm a part of, do I want to help them curate them down this direction? And ultimately, if I want to make a change personally, on a personal level, that's what I have to do. So I can sit here and say that, I don't agree with this, or I don't agree with that, or that's a bad idea. But at the end of the day, it's not my business. It's their businesses. I can critique their business, and I could give my opinion on what I think should happen. But if I think it should be done different, then I gotta figure something out myself to help create a solution for it.
Let's brainstorm here. Let's think about this in a constructive, positive manner, okay? Because this has been a long time argument in poker. We need to get more women involved. It's untapped. Women aren't playing compared to men. All right. Of course, you're going to have the nature versus nurture arguments. Of course, you're going to have how much of that is the experience they have at the poker table versus men. There's a million reasons that people are going to argue. And frankly, I've seen these exact arguments since I got into poker, and they're all kind of the same as of today. So putting all that to the side, and we go back to what can we actually do to get women into poker? I'm not actually sure about what good ideas are that will help broaden the number of women that play poker. Do you have ideas that actually could do something? Because, like, for example, you have a women's only series. Is that actually bringing women into poker, or is that just giving a place that women that currently play a place to go play a tournament series? We need things that actually are conducive towards bringing women into poker, or else this kind of just turns into this, like, let's just all feel great about ourselves because we're saying, like, we should be more inclusive of women in poker, which we should, but there actually has to be actionable things that we can do, or else what is the point of this conversation that we're going to continue to have basically indefinitely?
Yeah, I think that an idea might be something like what WPT Global's doing, where they're partnering together with the Alexandra Botes, and now they're providing not only resources financially to support the ideas, but also resources in the poker world to connect her with certain poker. Like, she came to 25K heads of event, right? She hung out with all the people down there. We all made content together. Then she goes places, event with Phil Hellmuth, Tom Dwan, brings certain content creators that she knows from her world, and then starting to build relationships with people like that, with corporations like WPT Global that have the budget, resources, and vision to be able to start to execute some higher level ideas that can really grab attention and start to get outside the traditional poker women demographic, and then having infrastructure for events that might service those people that do want to play, and then trying to set a culture of, whatever the culture's been. People say, oh, people are disrespectful to recreationals. I agree. They're assholes to men and women at the table. I'm not disagreeing with that. Just, it ain't like women are getting treated worse than guys. Maybe women say they are getting treated worse than guys, but I see a lot of guys get treated pretty shitty too. So, and, I don't think I think it's just people at the poker table. They get out of line, they get drunk, they get crazy. So I think from the standpoint I see it at, it's that about trying to advocate for changes in the way that these situations are dealt with from an operational standpoint, in terms of if you run into these situations as a poker manager, how do you best handle that? And what is the best practice? And what is tolerance level for these kind of things? And then, okay, well, what should the adjustments be, right? I don't feel like there's any like common discussion amongst things like that. And like I said, I don't see the main people really making this a priority in the messaging to try to change the way things are going. So it would take a concerted effort from that area. And then also just the people who have the channels helping to promote the women who are trying to become professional content creators at the high stakes, get a lot of views, whether that's a girl like, Poker Face, right? She's on Twitch. There's Leah's on Twitch. She's been partnered with GG Poker. She's from Eastern Europe, very great personality, younger, right? Like basically partnering these people up with other channels who are actually able to get attention. And unfortunately, there's not many of those. So you could argue that you need consistent, repeated exposure to really break through for an extended period of time. And you not only need to be great at poker, debatably, right? You need some of these categories: good at poker, great at personality, great at content, and then a platform or a partner to help distribute you repetitively for as long as possible. So once we can find those things, to me, right, then we'll start to really see some movement on here. But right now, I feel like those women are being established and they're still coming up in the content game. And I don't know if we have that next generation ambassadors yet that I've seen. We have some people that are trying to establish themselves, but helping those people out, I think, is one thing that me and you could personally do a lot more of. Work together more with women in poker who are content creators.
Well, so I like the direction that you're going. And I think these are the ways that would actually impact the number of women in poker. Having a really big female vlogger, I think would. Having a really good high stakes poker pro that's a female, I think would. Mm-hmm. Having big female personalities in other areas cross over, I think would. And then if, like, for example, the main event was won by a woman, I think that would have a huge impact. So I think any of those are things that would really do a good job. I don't think that having a small thing like a series of poker for women, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we need to try this. Maybe I'm against this for no reason.
I bet you'd be surprised, especially what's happening now. Yeah. And plus you got the right support with guys like Brad and Andrew,
but anyway, going back to this, when I look at these different things, a lot of this stuff is hard to create as individuals. It's hard to create. So you say, like, okay, there needs to be a really big female vlogger. Well, in order for there to be a really big female vlogger, she has to be really good at it. Right. Mm-hmm. And there are so many, I think this is actually one of the biggest problems in poker, is that you have so many less women trying than men, that you're going to have some men break through that women won't. Just even if everything's exactly equal, when an industry has 90-something% men and just single-digit % women, it's just way more likely the people that are best at it are going to be men. Mm-hmm. I'm not getting into like who's better at it or whatever, any of that kind of bullshit. Just straight up statistically, you just have so many more men. We need to have at least one high pro. Like imagine, just theoretically, imagine if the biggest poker vlogger was female instead of male. That'd be huge for women in poker. Imagine if one of the absolute top best high stakes pros was female. That would be huge for poker. I mean, these are the kinds of things that we need. And I'm not sure exactly how we get there, because it seems to me like it's one of those things where it's like a chicken or egg kind of problem. You get these things by having women in poker, and you only get women in poker by having these things. So it's a very complicated problem that I'm not really sure what the solution to is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the solutions are to have more discussions about it like we're doing now. That's one of the main reasons why we're getting into this, right? Bam, and Nick says it seems disingenuous to promote a certain demographic, right? I can understand that argument too. But in poker, this has been an issue that a lot of people feel passionately about. So I'm at least trying to offer some solutions because I've thought about this a lot. And maybe someone's watching, listening that takes one of these ideas, solutions, tries it out. Let me know how it goes. If you want my involvement, let me know. But it's just kind of going across things I'm working at now.
It
And
gets
I know, yeah, go ahead.
it gets in a weird territory too. Like I remember a Prahlad Friedman tweet where it was like, I don't want to misquote this because it was like pretty racial, but it was basically like, if you're a Black or a Hispanic poker player, hit me up so I can help you. It's like, is this the direction that we're going? Like, do I need to finish this video and say like, hey, anyone that's a female vlogger, hit me up so I can help you? Do we feel like that's a good or a bad thing? And I mean, unclear.
Yeah.
Unclear, divisive for sure. Or we're gonna just like cherry pick people based on their identity. I don't know. It gets into such gray area so fast that it's very difficult to make impactful change.
Yeah, I think that's how talent works, right? When you're in music industry, if you're looking for new artists and you're looking for women, then you're going to go find women. So in this situation, if I'm personally looking for women ambassadors to go work with, I'm going to go look for women. Oh, well, to build women ambassadors, usually you do that through events or through consistent content. So sort of on a personal level, that's where I'm directing it to. I'm not necessarily biased towards men or women in this situation. If I find talented guys to work with, I want to work with them too. If I find talented women to work with, I want to work with them as well. I personally think someone like Melissa, who's working with Solve for Why, she got a great personality and she's got, I mean, I think she could do a lot of different things in content. So if I'm building out a dating show, for example, that might be one person I'd want to co-host with me. So I'm thinking about solutions I can just do on a personal level, whether it's micro, whether it's macro, or it could turn into something fucking big, but that's sort of where I'm starting out my own exploration, and I'm excited about it. I think that's some good ideas, especially with Botez. I think she's awesome, and she really gets it, and she's got the aspiration and excitement to even be something in poker, which not every ambassador has. So
absolutely, she's been on the pod, by the way. She's been on the pod.
Yeah, all right, you had her on after Cabo, right? Yeah.
Joey, you have managed to hijack this show and make it a 3-hour Joe Ingram special. So let's wrap this up. Plans for the future. What do you got coming up? Do you have any content in the near future you're going to be doing?
For content coming up, I am basically hoping that we're just putting some gameplay out for Taunt Battleworld, the actual fighting game. So I would like to focus more on that project, but I'm working on community and partnerships and, you know, some sort of like ambassadorship role for when the game actually gets going. But I'm kind of been going pretty light in terms of that. So I think my poker plans are World Series of Poker. I'm going to do more podcasts. I'm going to have your boy Foxen on. Alex Foxen. I know maybe you two aren't the best of friends, but I'm going to have Foxen on there, talk a little bit to him about some stuff, and maybe your boy Alan Keating as well, too, learn about his crazy backstory out there. And I do have some new shows recorded as well, too. So I have some pieces I really want to dive into. The Bryn Kenny thing, especially. I mean, I feel like it just kind of went and died. I find that fascinating how it kind of went and died so quickly. And yeah, there's a few ideas I'm working at, but I think right now I'm just sort of taking it easy. If I see a good spot that I want to take to make a video, I'm going to make it. If I have someone I want to have on, I'm going to have them on. I'm going to do some more crypto stuff as well, too. And I might do a video on the Luna meltdown in terms of what happened with that, because I really want to learn more about that. And it's obviously a really popular story right now. So I'm kind of just going to pick my spots a little bit, but I'm not going to get overly focused on being like a huge big content creator who's got to always be in all, get a lot of engagement and get a lot of attention and stuff. I'm just going to more maybe take it easy and maybe pour some fire on it once, or pour some gas on the fire once in a while. But for right now, just see what happens, see what everyone else does, find ways I can work together with other people, build out some of the events I have. And yeah, man, just try to live a healthy, peaceful life with my friends and my family. So that's sort of the goal. The focus for right now.
That's good to hear, Joey. Thank you for coming on today and breaking it down for us, your thoughts and everything lately, what you've been up to.
Thank you.
And making this podcast, I don't know, 30 minutes longer than the longest podcast in the history of the show. If anyone was gonna do it, it was gonna be you. And that's how it should be. It's how it should be. We have traditions to uphold. And thank you, the viewer, for tuning in today. That's going to be a wrap for the Doug Polk Podcast with Joe Ingram. We're going to be back next week with Rob Young. I have a feeling, it's just a hunch, we're going to be talking about some cheating in poker. Stay tuned. It's going to be a great one. I'll see you next Tuesday. I will be at the lodge tomorrow playing some poker on I think it's going to be a high roller, 5K high roller. Is that going to be streamed? I don't know. I should have notes for these things, but for things besides questions for Joey. That's going to be a wrap. See you at the lodge. Peace.
Peace.